It's time for Twit This Week in Tech. Oh, it's a big show. Alex Kantrowitz is here from the Big Technology Podcast. Ian Thompson from The Register, and brand new to the show, Jacob Ward, former NBC journalist who has written a really interesting book about AI called The Loop. We will talk about the entire world turning Studio Ghibli thanks to ChatGPT, and breaking news, Sam Altman saying, knock it off, you're killing me here. We'll also talk about the White House Signal breach and why you probably shouldn't be using Signal for your most secret war plans. And what do I do with my spit now that 23andMe is bankrupt? All that and more next on Twit.
Podcasts you love
from people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is Twit, This Week in Tech, episode 1025, recorded Sunday, March 30th, 2025. Week Perfection. It's time for Twit, This Week in Tech, the show we get together and talk about the week's tech news. What a week it's been. Holy moly. Want to welcome Jacob Ward. Jake's a first-timer, so we'll be nice to him. But he just published a book called The Loop. You can see a stack of them behind him about AI. Reporter for NBC and all over the place. His current newsletters called and podcast now, The Rip Current at theripcurrent.com. Jake, it's great to have you. Thank you for joining us. I appreciate it.
Leo, thank you for having me. I was saying to you before we came on, 3 hours, brother. I don't know how you do it, but I also think I'm not sure we're going to get through a whole week, this week in particular, in 3 hours.
There's a ton of stuff.
This is my first appearance. This particular, why couldn't I have picked a
light
slow week where we?
It's funny because I thought this was going to be. I thought this was going to be a light week, and then you reminded me. Oh, the Signal thing happened this week, and it was like, oh gosh, this has been a long week. Yeah. Ian Thompson is also here from theregister.com. Hi, Ian. Great to see you.
Good to see you as ever. How's things going?
Yeah, it's going. It's going.
Well, you say old friend. I was judging a virtual reality conference at MIT a couple of months ago, and someone came up to me. It's like, you're Ian Thompson. I've been watching you on Twitch since I was a teenager, and you were just like,
isn't that great?
That's both great and also, God, I'm old.
Ian, in 2 weeks is our 20th anniversary show.
Fantastic.
We started April 14th, 2005. And we're going to do something special on that show. In fact, I've already started to receive videos, and somebody wrote a poem. Your memories of the first time you watched Twit, where you watch it, things like that. We want to kind of honor our long-suffering audience next 2 weeks on April 13th. Also with us, great to see him, Alex Kantrowitz, the Big Technology Podcast and newsletter. It's always great to have you on, Alex.
Always good to be here, Leo. Thanks for having me.
Such smart stuff you're doing at Big Technology. It's kind of cool when two of you are former mainstream media guys who moved to, be creators, and the third is at the Register. You're the guy still in mainstream media, Ian. When are you going to start your newsletter?
Honestly, I just enjoy being a writer again, being a journalist, and you going after each story again. And, you wake up, there's always something new. There's always something you can get out there, and it's great.
Hey, you know what?
That independent, by the way, so you should join us. Hopefully we'll convince you by the end of the show to go independent, start your own thing.
I will say I miss teamwork, though. I miss, I miss being able to call a Washington, D.C. bureau and saying, hey, I need a senator to talk to. I miss the the teamwork in a way. I think, I love so many things about this model, but putting people together to, especially in the face of this maelstrom of news, have the idea that all of us are just going to be writing about whatever we saw on the internet, and that's going to save democracy. I don't know, you guys.
The three of us have your back, Jake.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Well, great.
We got
to be with you then.
This is your new team. Although we're all frenemies because we're all kind of in competition with one another. There's a limited number of eyeballs, and you can't call me and ask to meet a senator, so that's right out. But Alex knows a lot of big names. Alex is amazing getting the big names on his.
Yeah, I agree.
Podcast.
I agree.
I'll hook it up. Just hit me on the DMs. We got you.
So this was the week that Studio Ghibli burst onto the scene. Miyazaki's famous movies are beloved by fans, but now he's being turned into an AI meme. OpenAI added the ability for ChatGPT 4.0 to create images. Actually, been playing around with this a little bit, and for some reason, people really wanted to do Studio Ghibli stuff. This is the disaster girl, the girl in front of the house on fire in the Disney style. Mm-hmm. She kind of looks like a Disney princess. Here's a Studio Ghibli grumpy cat, very nicely done. This was less good. The Mona Lisa as Vincent van Gogh, because you don't have. I think people might think, oh, it's a Studio Ghibli filter from ChatGPT. No, it can do anything. I even had it do Ian Thompson with big eyes.
Yeah.
Aren't you
very
cute?
big.
It did get the shirt right, though. A nice plaid shirt. And then finally, Rembrandt and the Twit logo. Nice brush strokes. And very dark. very
dark indeed.
But now what I want, I guess, Benito, can you do a screenshot of the four of us? It would be great to have a screenshot of the four of us. Okay, and before this show is over, have a Studio Ghibli or Ghibli. We've decided it's Ghibli version of this.
All right, everybody smile.
Okay, smile. Open your eyes wide.
All right.
Now, one of the things that happened immediately to me is that I got rate limited. And actually, Sam Altman says, you guys are burning down the servers. But there is a larger question. If you're Miyazaki, you might be a little offended by this. In fact, Benito pointed out, and he's probably right, that it's only a matter of time before somebody does full-length movies this way.
I think that's. I've had a conversation. I'm sure all you guys have spoken to developers in that world. I was talking to somebody the other day at UC Berkeley who's working on something in this world, and I said, how long before we do a full 90-minute movie? Because right now the trouble that they're having is they can't keep the same look of the characters scene after scene after scene. It sort of migrates over the course of it. And he was like, within a year, we'll have 90 minutes. And that was, and to me, like you say, Leo, like this company just can't stop walking headfirst into the most, the weirdest interpretation of how art is supposed to be consumed. And how tone deaf the grabbing up of it is, like the Starlink, or sorry, not Starlink. Help me out, you guys. Oh my God, I'm blanking on it.
Scarlett Johansson.
Well, there's Scarlett Johansson.
I often confuse Starlink with ScarJo. Yeah,
no, not ScarJo. What's the one?
They're both in the stars.
White House? What's the Stargate? Stargate.
Oh, you know what? I don't blame you for being confused. That's the $500 billion, $500 billion AI effort with Oracle and Sunsan and
they name it
Altman.
for the show, right? And the conceit of that show is that an amazing alien technology that transports people between worlds is in fact being used by a super annoying race of enslavers grabbing slave labor from other worlds. And it's just that thing where you're like, why would you call it that? And in this case, you're grabbing Miyazaki, the most beloved, if you're a young person who likes to be alone in your room and live in a calm world of beauty and think about, non-technology things, to have this as the way OpenAI shows off this latest twist in this technology, to me, it's just the most tone deaf version again,
or maybe
do some video game art. Don't do Ghibli,
Or maybe that's the point, though, because, I mentioned Scarlett Johansson. She's on my mind because
she's on all our minds, but like the Roman Empire, it's just a condition of being a male.
Okay, no, but I'm talking about it from the tech standpoint that when OpenAI released the voice chat, it was
she was pissed.
GPT 4.0. She was upset. They tried to work with her. She said no. They basically copied her voice anyway. Sam Altman tweets her. This is in May 2023 or 24.
Tweets the word her, which is her, running right into the spikes.
Exactly. Yeah. So she says, all right, I'm going to sue you. Guess what happens? Everybody starts paying attention to the fact that OpenAI now has voice that's so realistic and sounds so much like Scarlett Johansson that it must be good. And then you go from a moment where OpenAI stagnated. Basically, they hit 100 million users in February 2023. They don't crack that until about April or May 2024. So basically a year of stagnation. And once you found out that they had made this voice that was as good as Scarlett Johansson in her, the numbers boomed. OpenAI went from 100 million users to 400 million. I think that what they're doing now, the fact that they are amplifying, because they are amplifying the Studio Ghibli, Miyazaki stuff, is the same exact thing. I think they lean into the controversy as a marketing tool, and it's absolutely working for them. I mean,
in their defense, did they mention Studio Ghibli? I think somebody in our chat is saying that was emergent behavior. That went viral, independent of what they.
Sam Altman's profile picture right now is an anime Sam Altman that looks a heck of a lot like a Studio Ghibli.
Well, he's leaned into
avatar.
It. You're right.
So it's not like they're running away from it. And in fact, I would say that they're encouraging this. And it's working. Now, this is a tweet that Sam Altman posted just before we came on the air. He said, "There's biblical demand. I have never seen anything like it." And he's begging people to stop creating images because they can't do anything. And in fact, someone was like, "Well, when is AGI coming?" And he goes, "As soon as you stop creating images, it will come a little bit sooner than you are right now." So I think that they understand
slowing us down, says Sama.
Yeah, pretty much. I think they understand quite well what they're doing, which is that when they make these viral moments, they cement ChatGPT as the number one / maybe the only AI tool with mass adoption right now. And they need that to happen because we all know what happened with DeepSeek a few months ago. The entire foundational model layer has been commoditized. So actually this image creation and the voice stuff, that's all they have because it brings people into ChatGPT. And, say what you will about whether it's tasteless or not. I think there's an argument to be made either way. The fact is that this is working and it's a big moment for them.
Actually,
this is as usual. This is me walking headlong into being the naive guy who thinks that art should be protected against these people. Because I don't know
if you're naive. I think
you're absolutely correct. I think it makes perfect sense, right? From an outcome perspective, from a strategy perspective, it makes perfect sense, right? Get the attention how you want. But meanwhile, you see all these these like animators on social media literally weeping into the camera saying like, this is the end of it. This is it.
That's also a great way for them to get airtime. And let me ask you this, Jacob, what do you think about fandoms? Because we had a story in the prep doc that Leo and Benito sent around right beforehand. And the headline is Hayao Miyazaki's AI Nightmare. It's from The Atlantic. And I'm reading this story and I'm prepared to read an op-ed about how terrible it is that they're ripping this guy off. But we all know that films and studios like Ghibli have benefited from fandoms, people that are obsessed with what they make and they make derivative work, and that continues to contribute to the popularity. Now, I definitely hear the artists, and I know Miyazaki is one who's come out against AI, and I hear the objections, and I'm not going to diminish them. Like, I think that's a legitimate objection, but there are two sides of it, because when I'm reading the story about Miyazaki's AI Nightmare, I'm seeing the case being made that fandoms are propelling this type of work. And maybe that's going to be the case here. I mean, right before we came on air, we're trying to get the right pronunciation of Studio Ghibli or Ghibli, whatever it is. The four of us would never spend a Sunday afternoon trying to figure out how to pronounce the name. It just isn't relevant in most conversations. And now it is.
I guess I would say, I mean, I take your point, and I think that the idea that in this particular historical moment, as we are seeing companies like OpenAI get attention by exploiting the creative work of other people, it is going to, I think, have a kind of flywheel effect on the fandom of that group. I agree with you on that. But I also think the longer term concern, and when I think longer term, I'm talking 12 months, like after this historical moment, I think it's an open question whether we're going to have anything like a Studio Ghibli or an Aardman Entertainment, the guy who does
Wallace and Gromit.
Yeah, Wallace and Gromit, exactly. The market won't be there for people to make those kinds of original, handcrafted, beautiful kind of IP, because it'll be so much cheaper and easier for kids to just pull up whatever they want. I had this conversation with Justine Bateman, who from Family Ties, who went on after her career in that to get a computer science degree. And her big argument during the SAG-AFTRA strike was, if we let these studio execs have their way with AI, they're just going to make sort of DIY movies such that you sit down and you say, I want something with Harrison Ford and make it a Viking thing, a little bit of sex, but not too much. And no one will ever hire another new actor again. So I think you're right that like in this moment, existing IP and existing actors and Studio Ghibli and the rest of it will benefit to some extent. But I just worry that the long-term effect, I'm curious what anybody else thinks about this, is maybe a world in which we don't have anything new to sample. We're just rehashing the same stuff.
I do feel that in a way that there's you raise a very valid point indeed, and it's something I've noticed over the last 10 years ago. I mean, if you look at sort of like the top 10 films throughout the last decade, there's very little new stuff and a decreasing amount of it. It's all reboots or using an existing feature, and I think AI is just going to turbocharge that completely. And I'm sure a lot of the studios looked at it just like, yes, we can get rid of those pesky actors that cost us so much money. But the fact is they also turn in great performances, which AI, not so sure it will.
Yeah, then the AI replicating human performances is going to take a while. But I would also say if we're trying to think about the total creative output that we're going to have on this planet, just think about what it takes to create an animated film today. So this is from Derek Thompson, Mr. Abundance himself. He cited in a tweet last week that Disney can't make an animated feature for less than $200 million. And right now, we're seeing this stuff actually work in video as well. Now, is that a threat to studios like Disney? Sure. But is it also an opportunity that you can start making stuff for less than that $200 million? And I don't know, maybe the best creative output will rise. Like if you're Disney and your entire moat was that the everyday person couldn't create what you can create and it didn't matter what the story was, I would say that you're failing. Disney's great at story. So potentially they have an advantage because now there can be more creative proliferation at a lower cost, and they're in the driver's seat to lead this change. But they're now able to do their specialty at a cost, maybe at a fraction of what they were paying previously.
So 30 years ago, Steven Spielberg was making a dinosaur movie called Jurassic Park, and he had Stan Winston, the great model maker, making a giant T-Rex, a physically giant 8 foot tall, or I don't know, maybe even taller T-Rex. But at the same time as they were preparing for this movie, Spielberg happened to walk through Industrial Light and Magic, where two programmers had created in the computer a T-Rex. Spielberg saw it and stopped Stan Winston. And that was the first example of CGI used 30 years ago in a film. I'm sure at the time, the model makers were pretty upset. Star Wars was entirely practical models. But a new way of making movies was created. And while I'm not a huge fan of CGI in movies, it's in every movie, whether you know it or not. And it has changed filmmaking without destroying filmmaking. I don't think that an AI-created Studio Ghibli movie or even a real life action movie featuring Indiana Jones would be as good as one created by humans, acted by humans, with all due respect to Justine Bateman. I think that's giving a little too much credit to the AI. I don't think it's the same. Humans have something they do that's very different. Incidentally, Studio Ghibli, this is from Business Insider, probably cannot stop what OpenAI is doing. Business Insider interviewed IP attorneys who said, the juries or the courts are still out on this one, but generally copyright laws allow artists to mimic a visual style. It's not considered stealing. And in fact, when you talk about Disney was copying the Brothers Grimm. Probably Studio Ghibli was heavily influenced by the early animation art of Disney. And there will be another generation that will be heavily influenced by the animation art of Studio Ghibli. This is the process. We copy each other. No human does it all in a vacuum.
I do find it kind of amusing, though, that we've just had Napster being bought by somebody. And you remember Napster when all the studios were just like, intellectual property is everything. We must protect it at all costs. And now they're ripping it off for this. So, it's strange how the way these things turn around.
I'm more sanguine than you are, Jake, about the future of art. I do think artists and creators and humans will still do what they do. Although Miyazaki says AI is anti-human. He is not a fan.
He calls it an insult to life itself.
Yeah, an insult to life itself. Yeah.
I think that this, I just think I always try, whenever anyone says it's not good enough yet to do, a true simulacrum of the human experience of watching Harrison Ford or whatever it is, I just always say, give them 2 financial quarters and they'll figure that stuff out. Like the quality is going to go up and up and up and up and up, as we've already seen. It's exponent. I wrote this book, The Loop, predicting the AI mania. I thought I was like 10 years ahead at the time that came out.
When did you write that book?
It came out 9 months before ChatGPT did.
Yeah.
January 2022.
Although even OpenAI was shocked. They did not expect ChatGPT to be successful. So you're right. We're moving at a rapid pace. The only real question is that last bit of it, right? You look at self-driving cars. They do really great 90% of the situations, but then something weird happens and they can't handle it. They drive through a paper wall.
This is exactly the point, though, which is that we're going to see humans and the machines work side by side to produce better outputs. It's not that AI necessarily disintermediating Disney. It's Disney with AI that's going to be great. I mean, just going back to your Jurassic Park example, did people walk away from that movie saying, oh, wow, that CGI dinosaur was really special. I'm glad we watched that movie because we saw the CGI dinosaur.
I don't think they even knew.
No, what they said was it was a great story.
Right.
And ultimately, it doesn't matter what technology you have. If the story is great, if it touches people's hearts, people will watch it, animated or not. And honestly, it's a challenge for us humans. We have to be able to keep our ability to reach other human beings in a way that's better than the robots can. And if the robots can only get 95% of the way there, then I think our creators are in great shape because we can get 100% of the way there. We know we can do it. Ghibli does it. Miyazaki does it. So many people do it. And if you give the people that are able to convey that message and tell those stories and touch the hearts, this technology, then you are looking at a great democratization of what we do and an opportunity for a creative explosion in the best case.
I certainly don't want to be like, I spend my entire first appearance on this great show being like Mr. Anti-Tech. I promise you, I have lots of positive opinions about technology, but this is one that is definitely a.
You're allowed, Jake. In fact, this is a debate that we've been having for the last 2 years.
Great. Okay.
And it's an unresolved. It's really an unresolved debate. It's
right, and we're not going to figure it out in these 3 hours. But I also think that it is a really fundamental thing we got to keep talking about. And one of the things that came up for me recently is, Alex, to your point of, and Leo, you made this point too, that the technology will take us 90% of the way, and then that last 10% maybe will be where the humans get involved, and that's where the sort of the human magic can happen. And the dream that these makers always talk about with humans and robots working hand in hand. And with that, up to a point, there was a study that came out from a big pharmaceutical company when ChatGPT first came out, and they began using a proprietary AI package to try to synthesize new chemicals and figure out new potential products, and it was incredibly effective at making people more productive. But the distribution of productivity was very much like this top tier of very skilled scientists used it well. And everybody else got kind of dropped out the bottom because they couldn't really adapt to the technology and they couldn't really figure it out. So the projection was that top 10% was kind of the group that would survive. But here's the part that really brings me up short on this hand-in-hand quality is that everybody, and especially the top 10% who are using it the most intensely, reported deep dissatisfaction with the job. They hated being in the role of catching the AI's work and getting it ready for prime time. And I worry that there's something and I'm not here to defend Disney, like that's not it. But Studio Ghibli, I think, is worth defending. And I'm not sure that the people that, suffer and suffer and suffer to be in that world are going to be okay with, or are going to be willing to get into that world to just take a computer's work across the finish line.
I probably just build more computers to do that job also. So
yeah, that's right.
Well, I love it that Sam Altman is begging people to stop.
If you want AGI, you got to hit pause on these images.
It underscores the problem that they have is that the more successful they are, the more it costs them.
Yeah.
And it's a very weird situation they're in. Incidentally, it is not widely agreed necessarily that Studio Ghibli's art is the greatest art. In fact, that Atlantic article Ian Bogost says, when asked, are the Studio Ghibli images evil? He said, I don't think they're evil. They might be stupid. You could construe them as ugly, but they're also beautiful. He's not a fan of the aesthetics of Studio Ghibli, to be honest.
Hi, this is Benito. I got a quick comment about that. Is that like people are more hijacking the idea of Ghibli? It's not like the actual style. It's like what you think when you see a studio.
It's big eyes. And,
exactly.
Yeah,
so they're hijacking what you pull out of a Ghibli film. They're hijacking that onto theirs.
Yeah, but if you watch, Spirited Away, that's an experience. At some point, you don't even think about the illustration.
Exactly. It's not so much about the illustration itself. It's more about all the other stuff that comes with it.
Yeah,
the story. And it was the same thing with Jurassic Park. It isn't about the CGI. It's got to be good enough that you believe it. Those dinosaurs are running after those guys, but that's all. And it was, and you believed it, and the story worked.
But I will point out to Ian's point of everything being a reboot, an Avengers reboot these days. Like, no one's going to those movies for the story. You're going to the movies to see the explosions and
that's true,
and the spaceships.
But you trust in the brand because the brand has told you an overarching story over time. Like if it was just the explosions without any kind of story arc, you're not watching that. And by the way, these images are so ugly that they've just taken over the internet. I don't accept that at all from me.
I don't know. The fact that Michael Bay still has a career suggests that people will just go to see the explosions.
Hey, Michael Bay's an artist.
That point I'll take. Leo, can we just for the next 2 hours make things explode and test the hypothesis?
We could. I'd probably make more money, to be honest with you. But this is this show is the antithesis of what the market's demanding. People thinking and talking about things with no explosions at all. It's probably the wrong way to go. Anyway, is this a breakthrough in image generation? No, right? In fact, I had just seen some Homer Simpson AI art where the Simpsons characters as real people, and I thought, oh, that's cool. And I was looking to pull it up, and then I saw that they were doing the same thing 3 years ago. I don't know if this is really a breakthrough in any sense. Midjourney's been doing it. Stable Diffusion's been doing it for a few years.
But it is just better than any of the other stuff. Like if you ask Midjourney to draw you an image of Tim Cook and Mark Zuckerberg, it will blend both CEOs and give you two people who are like
part of that is a safety thing. I think, Alex. I think
so go ahead.
I just think that the real names often are rejected by these tools.
Well, I think it's both. So I think this is an advance from OpenAI, and you have this story from Ethan Mollick that I dropped in the document on screen, just talking about how this is something that's being created by the model itself. Not just sent out an interpretation and then drop back in. So it's native to the large language model. And that's what's made it been able to do things.
The title of it is No Elephants, because if you ask an AI to create an image with no elephants in it, there almost always are elephants in it.
Exactly. Right? So it's listening now because it's in the model. But the other side of this is
it may also be that humans have tuned it that way.
Right.
Right.
Well, they've been dumb. They've been pretty stupid, these models, but they're getting smarter. And you're seeing that Ethan is also saying create an infographic, and he's giving it the exact text and it's pulling it off.
Yeah.
And he's telling it to have an otter hold that infographic, and it can do it. And he's saying make the otter an action figure, and it's doing that. So it's definitely
pretty
smarter.
Impressive. Yeah.
But the fact that it's smarter and combined with a pullback on safety. Or refusals, if you want to take that perspective, that I think is what's made this launch so dramatic, is that it's both a better model and it will refuse you less. Like, for instance, we've shown it imitate famous studios. We've shown it imitate The Simpsons. We've shown it put celebrities and public figures.
Stuff that it was barred from doing in the past, right?
I mean, correct. Yeah. It was not doing it before. So what OpenAI has done here is it's shown a real advance in its artificial intelligence by making this native to the large language model, and it's taken down those safety precautions and basically let the internet go buck wild And that's what we have as a result. And that's why we're melting OpenAI servers right now.
It is kind of a her moment. You're right. It's OpenAI saying, screw it. Let's make it sound like Scarlett Johansson. They did hire an actress, not Scarlett Johansson, to create that voice, but she sounded just like Scarlett Johansson.
Yeah, exactly what Sam tweets her at the end of the day. So.
Yeah. This is the very moment that Google and OpenAI are going to Washington and asking the Trump administration to basically take all legal restrictions off them when it comes to copyrighted work. They basically are saying we should have fair use on absolutely everything.
And I think the administration will be open to that. Don't you think? I think this is a sea change in Washington about all of this. The Biden administration really wanted to stop AI a little bit and really focus on safety, with David Sachs in as the AI and crypto czar in the White House. By the way, David Sachs' compadre, and I may regret this, Jason Calacanis will be on the show next week. And I will ask him, I will actually ask him, well, I'm going to ask him a lot of things, but among other things, I will ask him what the administration's plans are for AI. Because I think that that what's happened is Trump has been convinced by Sachs, Mark Andreessen, Sam Altman, and others that if we don't do it, the Chinese will. This is so analogous to what happened in 1939 when the physicists Albert Einstein and Leo Szilard wrote a letter to Roosevelt saying, you got to develop an atomic bomb because the Nazis are gonna. And Roosevelt took it to heart, created the Manhattan Project. We have now created the equivalent of 10 or 20 Manhattan projects in terms of spend and effort put into it to create AGI. And I think that Trump's been convinced that if we don't do this, that the Chinese will. And if they do, we're in trouble. Do you agree?
I'll be really curious to see. I mean, I when you have Jason Calacanis on, I would really want to know, like, did the gamble pay off, right? Because you saw Andreessen and all these guys.
They bet on the new administration. They did.
That's right. They bet hard on this new administration, and did it pay off? Because you're seeing other people who bet hard on it not have it pay off. So Zuckerberg, right, who put $1 million of his own money into all that stuff. He's still going to face the music with the FTC, supposedly. The new FTC. Yeah,
we'll get to that. Yes,
head says, he's going to go after him anyway.
I mean, Google as well. Yeah. I mean, they bow down and kiss the ring, and now they're in legal trouble. So
it's not enough to kiss the ring. You got to give the ring $250 billion. I think we've learned that.
Well, and we just don't know moment to moment how the mood is going to change from the very top. So I will ask Jason. I don't know. Yeah, absolutely.
I don't think Jason is a full MAGA. So it's going to be very interesting. He was for a long time very close to Elon Musk, and when Musk bought Twitter, he was one of the cadre of people brought in to whisper in Elon's ear. Now Elon's whispering
jump on the grande for him.
Yeah. So yes, we'll have lots of questions for Jason, and he knows.
Leo, I was in favor of letting these AI generators run wild and take the safety controls off. But somebody in the Discord turned the four of us into Muppets, and now I'm in favor of AI.
I knew that this is what I wanted the screenshot for. I knew the creativity of our Club Twit members would take over. And are we good looking Muppets?
Oh, I bet I'm Beaker.
No, we're not.
10-1 on Beaker.
Why am I blue? And why is Ian a dog? That's what I want to know.
That's a little concerning. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I look like Beaker. I'm not very happy about this.
You're pretty good. Beaker twins.
I think it's. I like it.
Woof. Right.
Thank you, Pretty Fly, for a sci-fi guy or a cis guy. Appreciate that. That was creation of our Club Twit. Very interesting. The question that we are continually asking, and it's getting boring now, is will AI at some point cross that final threshold and become as creative, as talented, as intelligent as actual human beings? Is the singularity near? We just had Ray Kurzweil on 2 weeks ago in Intelligent Machines. He says that 2029, 4 years from now, AI will be the equivalent of human imagination and human intelligence, and that by 2045, the singularity will happen where it actually surpasses us. You guys just quickly before we move to a break?
I don't know. I kind of look on it in the same way that, I look on sort of advanced fusion techniques and that sort of thing. It's always 10 years away, but we're moving slowly towards it. 2045, I think that's reasonable.
Quantum cryptography, quantum computing, fusion, and artificial superintelligence all are just around the corner. It often feels like it may never happen. It's like Zeno's paradox. It will always be just a little bit away, or something could snap and it could happen. And the world would change in all three of those circumstances dramatically in ways unknown to us at this point. Yes.
But it doesn't have to get there to have a profound impact on us.
It already has. That we agree.
That we're seeing already is going to change the way that we work. And it's popular in some areas to just be so anti-AI and say the whole thing is going to collapse, which it might, because there's so much money invested and we need to see an ROI on that investment, or at least the investors do. But the other side of this is it's already so useful. There is a path now that we're seeing with some of these reasoning techniques. Everybody's introducing different forms of agents that it's going to be able to do a tremendous amount of the work that we do already. So whether or not we, officially, like OpenAI declares
that's right.
AGI and emancipates itself from Microsoft, I think that this is just going to be like such a world. It already is, and it will continue to be a world-changing technology. Just think about how what we saw over the past 5 days is going to change advertising. Every ad mock-up is now going to go through this ChatGPT image generation. And
how much of that do you think is because of safety being ignored? Like they decided, the safety thing was a mistake. Let's just let it all hang out.
Well, I don't think they would say that safety was a mistake, but certainly taking the guardrails off is
taking off the guardrails. It seems to
that will create more, many more applications. And I think it's a good thing that in the beginning of this, the research houses erred on the side of refusal, because they didn't want everybody to go around and do what they had done previously with chatbots, which is the internet would always turn these bots into Nazis. I remember reporting on Teo, which was one of Microsoft's early chatbots. Sure. Yes. I wrote the story. I pinned it to my profile on Twitter. I went to sleep. I woke up and I had 100 messages saying, "Can you please take down the Nazi story from your?" And in that amount of time, in 12 hours, the bot had become, a Hitler supporter. And so I do think that it's smart for them to have decided, okay, we don't want the bots to go that route. This is a new technology. It's not like taking answers out of a database. It's learning from its responses. But I think they've gotten to a point where they're pretty comfortable, and now they're going to start to loosen it a bit to make the products more useful. So that's what we're getting to. And when they're more useful, to go to your point, Leo, they are going to really change the way that we work and the way that we live.
You have a piece.
Coding thing is amazing. Just being able to code up a piece of software. So I think this is pretty wild.
You have a piece that you just wrote that says, I'm starting to think AI can do my job after all.
That's right.
Not your job, though, right?
I wouldn't say it can do my full job, but it can do parts of my job. And, this is basically the history of this piece is last year for the Boston Globe, I wrote a story that said, wait, ChatGPT didn't take my job. And it was this story basically kind of mocking the bots and mocking this narrative that AI could talk and therefore we're all going to be out of work. And this story was the follow-up. And basically I said, listen, last year that was true, but this year I'm starting to see things from the bots that are making me a little bit nervous. Yeah. And the story that I have a couple stories in there, but the one that really, inspired the piece was I spoke with this journalist, Evan Ratliff, who has a great podcast called Shell Game, where he clones his voice and attaches it to GPT models and then puts 8,000 biographical words in there to let it learn to be him and go out and be him. And he came on my show. We talked about this. He told me that the bot went out and did an interview with a tech CEO and got better stuff than he did because the tech CEO felt less pressured. He knew that the bot would listen. He knew the bot was going to be open to what he's saying. And he knew he basically had unlimited time to get his point across.
It's kind of like Errol Morris's in Terratron, where he interviews people from the other room so they feel more comfortable. That's interesting.
So exactly. And so I think that experience isn't going to be unique to journalism. In customer service, for instance, people are going to feel more heard by customer service bots that will listen to them.
Really? You think so? Because people right now hate bots and they hate voicemail.
Well, but they're getting better. Remember the Scarlett Johansson thing. I know I kind of said it as a joke in the beginning, but if people believe that this voice can approximate what Scarlett Johansson did in her,
it flirted with him.
And probably we're going to see a lot of people fall in love with these bots. I'm not kidding.
Right. I spoke with Kevin Roos. He was the first.
Yeah, he was that one tried to break his marriage up, but since then we haven't heard many stories about this. I spoke with the Replica CEO not long ago, and she said she's been invited to multiple weddings between people and their AI bots.
For goodness sake.
And this is the technology is going to get
weddings
way better. So think about this. If the technology has the ability to make you fall in love with it, is the technology going to have the ability to handle your customer service request when it doesn't have a metric of getting you off the phone as quick as possible, which is how human customer service has, because they need to handle volume to justify the costs? Like, that's where we're headed.
I mean, this is the thing, right? Is like, I mean, I think Alex is exactly right that this thing does not have to be, in any kind of like philosophical or even scientific sense, AGI, for it to fulfill all the necessary, to check all the boxes for a human being to feel, heard on the phone or, heard by a virtual girlfriend or whatever like that. The human attack surface is very pliable. We are really workable when it comes to stuff. And yet at the same time,
we've learned that, haven't we? Yeah.
But we're at this place where like Alex mentioned,
we're suckers.
We're suckers, and this stuff is right up against, Anthropic has this new model context protocol that you can just turn loose to write code and it'll bang out anything you want. I just think every one of these, I'm like, there goes my job, there goes your job, there goes that job. And we are not, as much as these people who build these systems say, oh, we're going to now just live a life of leisure, there's no moment in the history of capitalism where that's ever been true, so I just think like all of this is going to be, it's, as soon as this thing can do a reasonable simulation of a human thing, it's going to be allowed to do that, and humans who do that for a living.
That's probably this year.
That's right.
I mean, it's just around the corner.
My weird hot take on this is that there's this theory that like, okay, once they get smart enough, the robots will enslave us. And we'll just work all day on behalf of the robots. And if you think about like just the U.S. economy, I mean, we're spending $300 billion this year. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The tech giants are going to spend $300 billion this year on CapEx. Most of that's going to go to AI servers. That's a huge part of like the profits in our economy going towards feeding the AIs. We're already
Isn't that the scary argument that what's happening really is that these super rich billionaires and these giant companies would like to replace human beings? We're a problem for them. We cost them money. We go on strike. We don't want to do defense work. Just get rid of all of them. And here's the problem with that. There's a big problem. The supply side problem. Or actually the demand side problem. If you get rid of all the people, who's going to buy your stupid product, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. You need people on the other side of what you're making to buy it. And if you fired them all, they won't have any money to buy it.
I mean, Sam Altman has this famous quote that he has there's a bet going in the text group that he's in between a bunch of these CEOs as to when the first billion-dollar single-person company will come along. Yeah. And already you're seeing these companies come
any day now.
Yeah, these companies are already out there that are pulling down hundreds of millions of dollars in recurring revenue and have like 20 employees.
I don't know if that's a good thing. I mean,
well, this is the thing. Like who's going to, I don't care how big a house you build, you're not going to be able to employ that many plumbers. You're not going to be able to employ that many driveway graders. Who's going to live? How are we going to live if only a handful of people, if each of these people have a single $1 billion company? There's only a certain number of them that are going to be available, able to be that.
How many billionaires can there be?
Yeah, exactly.
And who's going to be using these products? Is it billionaires, 4 billionaires, 4 billionaires by billionaires? Maybe
that's why, this is why I
start a new company, FBBB.
Yeah. This is why I fully imagine like building a little studio in the backyard of our home in California so that my kids can live there. Because I just don't know where they
might want to grow tomatoes, green beans, just, generate your own electricity.
Cow. I'm sure Oakland
dig a well.
Loose rules on cows in the backyard.
Move up here to Petaluma. There's a law that says anybody can have a chicken farm if they want it. Everybody has chickens here.
That's right. Chickens and butter,
milk.
Right?
Chickens and butter. Yeah.
Yes.
We had Anthony Aguirre on Intelligent Machines a couple of weeks ago. He founded, with Elon Musk and Nick Bostrom and others, the Keep the Future Human Society or Institute. And he was very concerned that artificial superintelligence, and the key to it from his point of view, was autonomous artificial superintelligence, would just say we don't need the humans. In fact, the humans are consuming resources we need. So screw them. We don't need them.
They need us.
We'll see. We shall see.
I always liked Ian Banks' idea where they sort of treat us like pets and we're very amusing. Occasionally we outthink them.
That's what Ray Kurzweil told me 30 years ago when I asked him about this. He said, don't worry. They'll think of us as their mother and father and they'll revere us and honor us.
Well, it is Mothering Sunday in the UK at the moment. So,
yes, happy Mothering Sunday. We had Gary Rivlin on last week. His book, AI Valley, just came out. Fascinating history of AI. This coming Wednesday, Keach Hagee will join us. He just published an excerpt from his new book on AI, which comes out this week. There's a lot of competition for your book, Jake. His book on AI has the kind of explosive inside story of how Sam Altman got fired and rehired. And
somebody needs to do that story.
He's got it. He did a lot of research. He got a great story. There is a good excerpt in the Wall Street Journal. Anyway, we'll be talking about that on Wednesday. Corey Doctorow joins us the following week. Harper Reed is going to be on. He's going to talk about vibe coding. Actually, he does more like pair programming with AI. So that'll be interesting. He's a coder. So we've got some interesting people coming up.
Corey Doctorow is a real pain to interview because everything he says sounds like a great quote, and it's just like I can't transcribe.
Basically,
all this.
When we have him on, have you been on with him on the show? Because when we have him on, we try to get only one other person, and we just shut up.
Yeah, I've been on with him, and it's I get exactly what you say. Just ask him about BBC Sound. So he'll just go on for 10 minutes about that.
Yeah, they did didn't they do the original Hitchhiker's Guide? I think they did.
BBC, yes.
BBC Sounds presents The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Unfortunately, they're about to cut off overseas users, so I'm going to be...
That's okay, because we're about to cut off NPR and PBS, so, it's just, we'll be living in this desert, this cultural desert.
Well, Radio Free Europe might actually survive. There's a bunch of European governments talking about keeping it funded.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah,
because they defunded Voice of America,
Yeah.
Interesting. All right, we're going to take a little break. When we come back, we should talk about the Signal story. We will. The Signal saga. I don't know how much there is to say about it, but we will. And if you have a minute or two, watch the Saturday Night Live cold open from last night because it was hysterical. And it was a group chat with a bunch of teenagers and Pete Hegseth. It was great. I think Marco Rubio joined it a little bit later on. We have a great panel. This is, I'm sorry, Jake, it's going to be a long one. I tried. I really did. We have lots to talk about. It's great to have one new person, and we're really thrilled to have Jacob Ward with us. His newsletter and podcast, theripcurrent.com. It feels like you belong instantly. So we're glad.
I feel like I'm home. I really,
these are your people. Yeah. Really Alex Kantrowitz, who I love, who is doing such great work at the Big Technology podcast and newsletter, bigtechnology.com. Incredible interviews. And of course, Ian Thompson, who is the last ink-stained wretch in the... Actually, there's no ink involved, is there? In your
No, we've been online all for our entire 27-year history. But
wow,
yes,
that's good.
I do like internet journalism. I do. The problem with Dead Tree Publishing was if you made a mistake, it was locked in there forever. At least with the internet, then it's kind of like if you make a spelling mistake, you can fix that. But still battling away on a day-to-day basis, covering the news.
Doing great stories. One of your stories was food for conversation on Intelligent Machines this week. I don't remember which one, but we did talk a lot about you, just so you know.
Okay, fair enough.
Good to have all three of you. Our show today brought to you by NetSuite. If you listen to this show, you probably understand that a lot of what we talk about is trying to understand what's ahead, right? What does the future hold for business? And the problem is if you ask 9 experts, you're going to get 10 answers. Rates are going to go up. Rates are going to go down. Inflation's going up. Inflation's going down. It would be nice if somebody would just invent a crystal ball. But until then, over 41,000 businesses have future-proofed their business with NetSuite by Oracle, the #1 cloud ERP, bringing accounting, financial management, inventory, and HR all together into one fluid platform. With one unified business management suite, there's one source of truth, giving you the visibility and control you need to make quick decisions. With real-time insights and forecasting, you're peering into the future with actionable data. When you're closing the books in days, not weeks, you're spending less time looking backwards and more time looking at what's next. If I had needed this product, it's what I'd use. I'll tell you what, whether your company's earning millions or even hundreds of millions, NetSuite helps you respond to immediate challenges and seize your biggest opportunities. This is the time. Speaking of opportunity, download the CFO's Guide to AI and Machine Learning. It's free right now at netsuite.com/twit. Absolutely free. It'll be a good introduction to NetSuite, what they can do for you, and also a really interesting explainer on AI and how it's going to apply to your business going forward. A little crystal ball for you at netsuite.com/twit. We thank them so much for supporting This Week in Tech. And you support us when you use that address, netsuite.com/twit. Thank you, NetSuite, for the support. So I almost forgot this story until Jake said, "Oh, are you going to cover the Signal thing?" And I went, "What? Oh, that was this week?" Wow. So I'm sure everybody by now knows that the Secretary of Defense, the Secretary of State, the DNI, Tulsi Gabbard, the who was Mike Waltz? He's intelligence something. We're all
National
in a
security advisor,
National Security Advisor, NSA. We're all in a Signal chat, which was a little weird. That accidentally also included Jeffrey Goldberg, the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic. Goldberg published it, and at first he thought somebody's pranking me. This can't be real. J.D. Vance was in there, director of the CIA, John Ratcliffe. Scott Bessent, the Secretary of Treasury, Stephen Miller. I mean, this was a heavy duty group. He thought this is a joke until they put details of an attack on the Houthis, including time and date. And then an hour later it happened. And Jeffrey Goldberg, who's sitting in his car looking at the news, is going, "This wasn't a fake. There's no way this couldn't have been real," and wrote about it. Now, there's been a lot of noise ever since. Hegseth not only denied it, but called Goldberg names, at which point Goldberg said, "I'm not a liar. In fact, here's more stuff that I held back."
Well, they were saying it wasn't classified, so why not publish it in that case? So
it wasn't war plans; it was attack plans. Please. Any event, there's been general denial. You had a great podcast, actually, Jake, about what do they call it? Darvo.
Yeah. Oh man, don't get me started.
This was Darvo in a nutshell,
I know.
Right?
I had the same thought, and you see it at every level of government in the response to this. So Darvo, for anybody who doesn't know, was coined by a researcher named Dr. Jennifer Fried, who was a guest on the Rip Current podcast, and she coined this term way back when Clarence Thomas was being confirmed and Anita Hill came forward with her accusations. And she had come up with this acronym to describe the way that people accused of wrongdoing, public figures accused of wrongdoing, defend themselves. And the acronym stands for deny, attack, reverse, victim, and offender. And it is an incredibly effective way of disorienting and deflecting accusations. And she documented it over time, through
I have to say, they've polished it considerably.
It is the language of politics now. It is the language of politics. And the response to this is exactly that. You see the press secretary being asked, but aren't these classified plans and the rest of it? And she says, well, it's, this is at the hands of a Democrat journalist who's, this, that, and the other. I mean, just the reversal mechanism. Yeah.
Nobody was texting war plans, and that's all I have to say about it. They were attack plans. In any event, there is a tech story here, which is that they were using Signal, which is widely considered to be good, excellent, in fact, encrypted communications. Our own security guy, Steve Gibson, on Tuesday did point out that Signal is encrypted in the air, but the actual messages are decrypted so that you can read them. And so on your personal phone, they are decrypted. He also mentioned that we've had a hard time getting the Chinese out of our phone system. And so it's very likely that, the truth is Signal is probably appropriate for you and me, but not for the the Secretary of Defense, the Secretary of State, the DNI, the CIA director to communicate top secret information.
Well, there were two things that struck me about this. Was first off, there was a story went out that the FBI, that the NSA had warned that there was a vulnerability in Signal. Not quite true. There's a vulnerability in our handsets, as you point out. But also, why are they using Signal? We have.
It's illegal, as far as I know, for them to use Signal for this.
Well, this is it. You have records laws. They have hardened communications.
Well, that's why I think they were using it. They wanted to have deleting messages. In fact, many of those messages were set to delete. A court has now ruled that they may not delete them, that they must preserve them. The Federal Records Act requires they be preserved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and they also
he's got a copy. Just ask Jeffrey.
Yeah. I mean, I do love the administration was like, we've been very transparent about this whole situation. It's like, you invited a journalist right into your group chat. You can't get more transparent than that.
How does he get invited? I use Signal, as far as I know, in order to invite somebody to a group chat, you either have to have their Signal handle or their phone number, right?
I think there's little doubt that he was texting with administration members, and they just brought him in. I mean, it doesn't happen by accident.
Or
he's an incredibly well-sourced guy, and of course, he'd be in regular chat communication with a couple of those people. Probably.
Here's my suspicion, completely unfounded. Somebody was in on that chat, knew this was going on. Maybe it had gone on before, knew it was illegal, and covertly included Goldberg because he. Is in effect a whistleblower. Not probably one of the names we know, but
this seems dumber than that.
No, he was added by Mike Waltz. He was added by Mike Waltz, who was.
Well, we know he was added by Waltz.
Advisor. So that had to happen, I think, from Waltz's phone. So it's not like
Waltz says he doesn't. Yeah. He never has talked to Goldberg. He doesn't know Goldberg.
Yeah. Well, there's a picture that came up on the internet almost immediately after he said that of them the two standing next to each other at an event. I think honestly, idiocy is possibly the best solution, because there is a senior U.S. government official with the initials JG, and he's the trade representative. And I suspect that they just picked the wrong JG.
Yeah, that's right. That makes good sense. I have two things I've been thinking about with this. One is, so your typical way of communicating in this way is through these SCIF, these sensitive compartmentalized. I don't remember what the
security facility.
Yeah, security something, right? Where you got to go into a special room, and it's the ultimate return to office. You have to go to the office to use it if you're a lower level person. Only the very highest level people get a SCIF built in their houses. And so if you've come up in the...
By the way, most of these people would have a SCIF in their house, right?
Well, they would. That's right. But, when traveling and everything else, it's a pain in the ass. You got to go, you got to get up from your, get up and walk in your bathrobe over to the SCIF, right? It's a pain. And this is the Twitter generation who aren't built for the patience for that. So that's one thing. Another thing is...
I remember when Obama became president and did not want to give up his BlackBerry.
Right.
But was compelled to use, he was compelled by the NSA to use a Windows CE phone that he loathed. And he even talked about it on The Tonight Show.
That's right.
Those days are long gone, right? These guys the other thing
one thing that's been jumping out at me about this is if you look at the screenshots, and Benito, I don't know if it's possible to actually put the real screenshots on.
I can get them from the Atlantic.
Yeah, you can pull them up here. One thing you'll notice in the writing from Hegseth is there are M dashes in what he writes. So, right, if you're a magazine nerd like me, came up through magazines, I use M dashes.
I use M dashes, but it's hard to use them.
And you can only use them on a keyboard. You can't use them on a phone. I was just playing with Signal just now. Signal doesn't have M dashes.
Even if you put 2 standard dashes in, it won't convert it to an M dash?
Oh, maybe. I don't know. Maybe. But there's an M dash. So VP, right? Here's Hexeth. I understand your concerns and fully support you raising with POTUS. And if you go down below, right, the one apostrophe or one, just where he's numbering things, restoring freedom of navigation, core national interest, right?
Yeah.
So somebody was throwing at me, they were like, so either he's writing this off screen and cutting and pasting it into Signal, or, and here's the creepy part, did he use ChatGPT to write some of these messages? And if you did, how did you tell it what you wanted your messages to be about? You know what I'm saying?
I hope he didn't use ChatGPT.
You know what I'm saying? As I looked at that, I was like,
maybe he should have had Studio Ghibli emojis instead of the standard flame emojis. And
well, the White House did use the Studio Ghibli illustration in a real tasteless way.
That was very tasteless, by the way.
Yeah. I'm glad he stuck with emojis on this one.
Yeah.
By the way, the idea that he's copying and pasting from ChatGPT just seems a little bit too far-fetched for me.
I mean, who knows?
He's using a keyboard then that was automatically inserting M dashes, you think? That's a really interesting point.
I just looked on Signal. You can have an M dash if you do 2 dashes. Yeah.
Is that right? Can you do it?
Yes, you can.
How do you do it? If you just go 2 dashes, it'll turn into...
Remember, Pete was a
my bad then.
Journalist on Fox. He might have the same love of M dashes that you do, Jake.
Yeah, could be.
Our favorite DUI hire, but yes.
Do you use M dashes, Ian?
Yes, of course. Yes.
I love M dashes.
Yeah. I mean, it's just one of those things. If you see it, then it's that's right. That's proper and good.
So, is it a setting that you have to turn on, Alex, or is it?
No, you just open Signal on your phone. I mean, I'm doing it right now. It might also be operating system specific, but you go to. I have an iPhone. I hit 1, 2, 3 on the bottom of the keyboard. I hit dash twice, hit a space. It turns into an M dash.
Oh, well, there goes your theory, Jake.
I don't know. Yeah, maybe. Maybe. I mean, we can agree it's egregious enough without using ChatGPT, right?
We don't have to
hope he's not using that.
Well, I was reading up on defense news over the weekend, and there's a lot of very angry soldiers about talking about this, because it's like, if we did this, we'd be in Leavenworth, serving time. Quite why the Secretary of State for Defense is allowed to get away with it is another question.
Well, he's not going to get fired, according to Trump, but there should be a lesson learned here, right? Don't use Signal. Lesson number 1, right? Will they be forced to use SCIFs? And there is, I understand, I don't know, but I saw stories that said the DoD does have a secure messaging platform it can use.
Yeah. Oh, definitely, yeah, and they should be used in these kind of circumstances. I mean, one of the people in this group chat was actually in Russia when they signed on to the chat on a foreign visit. So,
which has been trying to break Signal forever.
Yes, exactly. But it's so much easier just to. It's kind of like the old XKCD argument. Do you break through very high level encryption using hundreds of thousands of data centers, or do you get a $5 wrench and beat the IT administrator up until he gives you the password? And it's the same thing with this. Signal is totally secure, but individual handsets aren't, and that's the key.
Yeah, in order for you to read it, it must be decrypted. It is decrypted on your handset, and if your handset has been cracked, which, by the way, is still happening. Pegasus.
Yep.
There's still, malware out there that can zero-click hack an iPhone. You shouldn't be using your personal handset for this. But you know what I don't know, and this would be a good story for somebody to do, is what does the government do with these people? Do they replace their personal phones? Do they have a business, a government phone that's secured or guaranteed secured? One of the complaints that security researchers have about Apple's iPhone is they can't tell often if the phone has been compromised.
Yeah.
Because Apple locks everything down so well.
I was going to say, I mean, if you're at that level of government, you really should have a dedicated handset, which is just used for critical information. Yeah, keep your personal handset for personal stuff. But for really serious stuff like this, you've got to basically get the NSA will do you a custom stripped down mobile operating system, which is very secure and very hard to break into. And that should be used.
You would imagine also that these people in that group chat are the ones that are like top of the list of other countries to hack. And if they do have those stripped down handsets, I don't think this is the ones that they were using, given that they have a journalist phone number or Signal username in there.
Absolutely.
Oh, well, so much ink has been spilt on this story.
I know. And all of us reporters are like, why can't that happen to us?
I know.
It's so funny.
We're all just like, that's the easiest scoop Goldberg ever got.
No kidding.
Wake up.
I thought he handled it quite well, though. He was very careful about what to reveal. He had another reporter from The Atlantic working with him side by side to validate information. I thought he handled it very well. I also thought it was a risky thing for him to do. Do you feel like he understood that what he was doing could end up putting him in prison?
Oh, I think he absolutely did. This is my greatest complaint about journalism is that we don't do a good enough job of explaining what we do and how we do it. And in this case, I think he did a pretty good job of explaining here's how we made the decisions we did about the timing of the release of this, so that and every single thing he did went by a lawyer, no question, who I'm sure figures in this shows that there's no intent to inform a military adversary or any of that stuff, But the rock steady process by which Goldberg and his team seems to have gone through this is really a testament to it, and it's part of why it's sticking around so much. It's really hard to beat him up on his process. But to your point, I totally woke up this morning with this is the problem with being a journalist is when you see great journalism from other people, it fills you with self-loathing. It's just like, God damn it! Why are they texting me?
Exactly. How can I get in their phone book?
Seriously.
And to be honest, I mean, they also haven't released the full text string from the chat, because in one case there was a member of a serving CIA member was mentioned by name. It is remarkable though that they let this information leaked out, because when you go through the chats, they're really quite detailed in that one of Houthis' top bomb makers, for example, was observed going into his girlfriend's apartment, so they leveled the apartment building. And having that level of detail, they must have had someone on the ground and have burned that source now.
Well, that's right. The Israelis are supposedly very upset about that particular thing.
I just could not even imagine being Jeff Goldberg at that moment, where you're like, he was in Austria, I believe, at the time, and saw these texts start to pour into his phone, and go from there's no way these people who are like using emojis are like serious and this has to be some sort of operation, to then you see the bombs hit and be like, that was real. It's crazy. Just the shift must have been totally nuts for him.
Must have been a fantastic, there would have been a fist pump going on, I think, to be honest, even though people have just died. This is like, yes, the story's confirmed. We're going to run with this.
There'll be a movie. Let's hope it's not created by ChatGPT.
A Ghibli film.
Studio Ghibli presents the Signal Group. In recent weeks,
who added Goldberg?
That's good. Who added Goldberg? That'd be good. I like it. You know what? I might, after the show, have it written in the style of Neil Simon and Aaron Sorkin, and we can
you couldn't make some of this stuff up, because the Senate and House were having intelligence briefings this week, and so they got all people like Tulsi Gabbard and the rest of them in front of the Senate Intelligence Committee, and we're asking them about this, and she's like, I don't recall anything critical being done. And then he released the second tranche of messages as they were at the House of Representatives intelligence briefing, and it was like, so did you lie to us or what?
Couldn't be much. And you know what though, they're going to escape with impunity. There's no.
Can you imagine if a Democrat had done this? That would have been, they'd still be
hearings for years. Hearings for years. In recent weeks, Customs and Border Protection agents have been searching through the phones of people coming into the United States. A doctor coming in on an H-1B visa was deported to Lebanon after CPB found, quote, sympathetic photos and videos of Hezbollah leaders. A French scientist was turned away after a device search unearthed messages criticizing Trump administration's cut to research programs. That's enough to get you sent back home. This is the story from The Verge. Courts have gone back and forth over whether the police and ICE and CPB can go through your personal electronic devices. They don't go through very many of them. Do you worry, Ian? You're a green card holder.
That's
right?
Correct. Yes.
When you come and go into the United States, do you wipe your phone and devices before you cross the border? What do you do?
Generally, I haven't. Just simply for convenience. I mean, if I go to Black Hat or DEF CON, then I'll take a burner phone and use that.
But that's not because you're worried about the government.
No. But I mean, but also you see, if you do take a burner phone, because I've been talking to a lot of people about this over the last couple of weeks, because things, as you say, they've really cracked down on it. And I think it would be more suspicious to have a burner phone. And the way the law is at the moment, you could still be asked to sign into your online services.
Right. They now search your social media. So unless you scrub your social media, it doesn't matter what you do on your phone.
Trump announced this week that basically if you're applying for a visa, you are now going to have to hand over your social media details, and they will be gone through.
Supreme Court ruled in 2014 that warrantless searches of cell phones violated the Fourth Amendment, with the exception of the border.
Yeah.
Courts have held that border searches, quote, are reasonable simply because they occur at the border.
Although not just at the border, because the border technically is, I think it's either 100 miles or 150 miles from a border.
So if you live in New Hampshire or Vermont, you're
yep.
anywhere you go, or Maine, anywhere you go. I do know people, I think, I won't say any names, but people we know do wipe their stuff or carry Chromebooks and power wash them before they cross the border. Some people have international travel phones, but that was just a few years ago. Now, if you're a U.S. citizen, you have the right to say no to a search.
But they can hang on to your phone.
Yeah.
They are not allowed to bar your entry, but they can keep your phone, laptop, or other devices.
Yeah.
And go through them. Permanent residents, that's what you are, right, Ian?
Yeah, I'm a permanent resident.
You can refuse a search, but you may end up in airport jail, which, as I understand it, is no fun.
No.
If someone with a green card leaves the U.S. for more than 80 days, they're screened for inadmissibility upon returning to the country. Green card holders who have certain offenses on their records may also be deemed inadmissible.
Yes, it is a worry because my mum's of a certain age, and it's just like, if I had to rush over there, could I rush back? The way things are going at the moment, you've just got to be incredibly careful.
The thing that scares me is, as a U.S. citizen traveling abroad, I'm worried about retaliation.
British customs officers can't say the word, are notoriously grumpy and lacking a sense of humor.
So are Mounties, by the way. People think Mounties wear big hats and save people from waterfalls, but no. Mounties are scary. And I have faced customs and border patrol going into Canada, and it's been difficult, even though
that border is no joke.
It isn't a joke.
The border is intense.
And this breaks my heart because I love Canada. I worked in Canada. I love Canadians. Some of my best friends and many of our best artists hail from north of the 49th parallel. But Canadians do not like us right now, and I can see retaliation. A lot of Canadians have changed their summer travel plans into the States.
Yep. Yeah.
We're antagonizing them for like no reason. I mean, this idea that if you want to go after trade deals, that's one thing, right? I don't think some of the trade deals that we've had with NAFTA have worked out in the U.S. best interest, and we probably should have been smarter before running into free trade the way we did, because we deindustrialized.
By the way, Trump made that deal in his last presidency.
Exactly.
Yeah, but this is the thing. The antagonizing for no reason and calling Trudeau Governor Trudeau and calling Canada the 51st state. I just don't see how that serves the United States interests.
It's also backfired massively because they're going through an election campaign at the moment, and the Conservative Party had been easily due to defeat the Liberals, and now that's switched completely because Canada is in the throes of massive nationalism. I was having dinner with a Canadian friend a couple of weeks ago, and they're taking it seriously. They might. If America invades, and he was like, yeah, if they invade, then they'll beat us initially, but it's not just taking the territory, it's holding it. And Canadians are armed and really peeved about this.
I don't blame
the U.S. is not invading, but it's not exactly being a very neighborly, it's not a neighborly moment, shall we say, between us and them.
Wednesday is Liberation Day. Which is the worst name for the day that these tariffs go into effect, including 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico. We know cars are going to cost more. People don't talk a lot about technology, but I imagine iPhones and laptops and computers of all kinds will also cost considerably more.
Yeah, we've upgraded our systems just before the tariffs came in. It was just like, right, now is the time to buy a decent new computer while you still can at the price.
That's good for the PC industry. Thank you.
Well, no, my wife bought a MacBook, so,
Well, and the thing is, as much as Apple is trying to make iPhones, or at least parts for iPhones in the U.S., it's not doable in the near future.
No.
TSMC is building a plant in Arizona. That's the company that makes the chips in Taiwan for the iPhone, but they will be legacy nodes. They won't be the A processors that they go in the iPhone, or the M processors that go, the Apple Silicon M processors that go in the laptops. Those are going to come from Taiwan. And even if the phones are assembled in Vietnam, I imagine there'll still be a consequence.
Yeah, I mean, you can't just spin up a fab just like that. It takes 2-3 years, and TSMC has run into real problems. They've had to import people from Taiwan over here because the skills base just isn't there to get these things built quickly.
Right.
Intel is doing the same. They're trying to spin up fabs, and ask Pat Gelsinger how well that went. But, these things take time, and tariffs are a very blunt instrument to try and force it.
Well, we'll see what happens. I feel like if you're going to buy a car, now's the time, right?
Yeah.
You have 3 days.
Tesla's going very cheap now, as I understand it. So,
Actually, yesterday was the big national protest at your Tesla dealership day. I don't know how many people were out, but there were hundreds at our local Tesla dealership here in Northern California. So
Elon was rage tweeting this morning calling for the arrest of somebody who gave a finger to a Cybertruck owner, and it was didn't
he sue the advertisers who were boycotting Twitter? Is this different?
Well, there's a report in the FT yesterday saying that, in fact, major advertisers are spending on Twitter.
Oh, they are now.
Only a token amount, just to show that that everything's okay between them, but they're not spending what they were.
Let's take a little break. We will come back because Elon sold Twitter to himself. And somebody, I hope, will understand what that means and explain it to us in just a little bit. You're watching This Week in Tech. Great to have our panel here. Alex Kantrowitz from the Big Technology Podcast. Always Day One, the book about Amazon. Do you feel like you made the right move?
Going independent? Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I went independent in May 2020. That's when I gave my notice to BuzzFeed. A lot of people said it was really stupid and crazy. I thought it would be worse to stick around. I just had this book come out. I had these ideas that I wanted to pursue, and I wasn't spending a lot of money because I was in lockdown. So to me, it was exactly the right moment, and it's been quite cool. And honestly, I love doing the podcast. I mean, Leo, you know this, right? It's just a lot of fun to be able to bring people on and talk about what's going on in the news, talk about things that you might be curious about, and hear perspectives from people that are in it. So I'm loving every minute of it.
You do a great job, and you get the best guests. You just had Dan Hendricks on from the Center for AI Safety, Amira Frade, who does amazing work at The Information, Jan LeCun, the head of AI at Meta. That was incredible. Reed Albergotti from Semaphore. I know you had, Panos Panay. Amazing.
Yeah, we've had a good run, and we have a very special show coming up on Friday. So everyone should stay tuned for that on Big
Is it a secret who you're going to have on?
I can't say who it is because it's tied to some news being broken in the AI world, but it'll be a good show.
Oh my God. If you're not subscribed, you got to subscribe. And, the good news is you can subscribe to the podcast for free. You can read the newsletter for free, but you should probably pay for it because there's great content behind the paywall too. Alex Kantrowitz, deservedly successful in your independent career. Well done.
Thank you, Leo.
Do you read Japanese? Is that why you have a Japanese book behind you?
That's my book got translated into something like 11 languages. So that's just one translation of the book.
Wow.
It says always day one, just in a different language.
But that's the question.
Yes.
I see actually it's Chinese. It might be Japanese with Chinese characters, but I do see the character for one. So there you go. I do see day one.
These are the blurbs. So clearly.
So the best blurbs. Awesome. That's fantastic. Yeah. Congratulations.
Thank you, Leo.
Ian Thompson also here from theregister.com. When's your book coming out, Ian?
Oh, well, I've got.
You must have one in the drawer behind that whiskey bottle.
I've got three on the go. So nice. It's getting them finished. That's the thing. You just need the discipline. Yeah. But
novels or nonfiction?
Novels.
That's what I figured. I think you should be writing novels. Yeah.
Yeah.
You have a literary style, and you do use the M dash, so that's good.
Very well.
Are they sci-fi?
Yes. Yes. Nice. The problem is I've read so much science fiction over the years that whenever you write it, and then you go back to it the next day and you think, no, that's too derivative of Gibson. That's too derivative of Clarke. What can you do? So
I don't know how musicians write new music. There's only a limited number of chords. It must be so difficult, Well, but that's what AI. See, that's the thing. AIs are doing the same thing, just ingesting other people's work to create new works, just like humans do.
Well, I was talking to a journalist about this when ChatGPT first came out, and they're just like, "That's it for journalism." It's like, no, not quite, because AI can't do breaking news. Right. It can do features and stuff like that, but it can't actually truffle out interesting facts. It can't cover a breaking news instant just as
Are you comparing yourself to a pig? Is that what you're doing?
Well, it's just.
Oh no, you're a truffle dog. Actually, we saw the ChatGPT.
Oh yes, the Muppet dog.
Yes. Great to have you, and of course, brand new. He's a newbie, but he's fitting right in. Jake Ward, jacobward.com and theripcurrent.com. His book, The Loop, is out now, and of course, the Rip Current, brand new podcast since 2024.
That's right.
It's good to put that on the wall because 20 years from now, you'll look back and go, see, since 2024.
I know, but since back when humans were doing jobs.
back when we were working.
That's right. It's just want to say it's a pleasure to be with you, not least because this is like, I feel like for so many years, I'm sure both Alex and Ian will agree with this, this beat, thinking about tech was considered this thing just for kind of like upbeat nerds to just kind of be off in our corner sort of talking about it. And now, the reason that I'm doing the ripcurrent.com is that, the Venn diagram of money and tech and billionaires and politics is now collapsing together in this crazy way. And to have been in this game as long as all of us have, right, and have watched these people who also themselves were once considered kind of off in some corner of society now be at the very center of it all makes, that's why I'm trying to do what I'm doing independently, and it's why I think this beat, once my speech to when I worked at NBC and before that at Al Jazeera, I just kept trying to say to people like, this is the sort of lingua franca. This is the universal language now. If you're being literate in this stuff is how you are going to understand why all of this other stuff happens.
Yeah. It's kind of crept into the mainstream.
It's interesting that you remember we used to have tech editions of some newspapers.
Right,
that's gone because tech is mainstream news
and the
now.
Zeros and ones.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah. I've been doing this for a long time. Back in the day when they did tech on TV, they had a picture of a hand moving a mouse and a guy looking at the screen and the screen scrolling up, and they just roll that over and over again.
That's
what is internet, Allison? What is internet?
Yeah. What is
when I worked at NBC News, I used to, the format was that you would write your, you write your piece, you get it done, and then you're handing it off typically to an editor who edits it, and you find it because it's breaking news. You're seeing it for the first time along with the rest of the United States and the world, and so you don't get much input on the edit. I always had like this little speech I would give to any new editor I was working with to be like, no dark typists, no like
hoodies,
hooded hackers, and no zeros and ones streaming.
There's such cliches.
That's it's interesting. A friend had got in contact with me who I used to work with, and she sent me a copy of my very first tech article from 1991, and it was about this thing called multimedia, where you could embed pictures and text and someday video into a document. And it was a hilarious read looking back.
It really is amazing. Our show today, anyway, great to have all three of you. We have more to talk about, of course, because Jake is expecting a 3-hour show, and gosh darn it, I'm going to deliver. Our show today brought to you by Melissa, the trusted data expert since 1985. And what I love about Melissa, they've been doing this for, 40 years now? Amazing. But they don't rest on their laurels because they have been acquiring companies. They've been adding AI. Melissa's AI-enabled data quality solutions go far beyond simply address verification. They're leveraging those 4 decades of accumulated data knowledge, advanced machine reasoning, and now with cutting-edge AI to transform raw data into actionable, reliable insights for your business. Melissa's ability to enrich and cleanse data spans multiple industries, from fintech to healthcare to government, education, real estate. The list goes on and on. Melissa's suite of verification and cleansing services will benefit any business that doesn't want to act as its own data scientist. Whatever rules your business operates within, Melissa is there to support you. I had a great conversation with a Melissa data scientist a few weeks ago, talking about how they can incorporate business rules into AI to give you actionable insights. It's really impressive. It's so much more than just address verification now. Imagine having a data expert that never sleeps. Melissa's intelligent system verifies identity. That's valuable in so many businesses. Know your customer rules in gaming operations. In medicine, Melissa ensures valid patient and medicine identification in healthcare systems. I mean, really, this is much broader than just, did we get the right address? Melissa securely updates and verifies constituent data across government databases. And Know Your Business enables verification and monitoring for financial institutions. Often, Melissa solves a compliance problem with Know Your Customer and those kinds of rules that couldn't be solved any other way. And they help you eliminate fraud. Melissa will guide you through all that complex data management with ease, making advanced data quality accessible to everyone, from small businesses to enterprises, yes, even to giant businesses and governments. With real-time data validation, comprehensive enrichment, cross-reference verification with gold standard reference data, and intelligent anomaly detection. It's no wonder why Melissa's the trusted data quality expert worldwide. I was talking to Melissa about how they match a patient's prescription with pictures of the medication to make sure that they're getting the proper medication and the proper doses, things like that. Now, you don't ever have to worry about your data with Melissa. They securely encrypt all file transfers, and they have built an information security ecosystem based on the ISO 27001 framework. They adhere to GDPR policies, SOC 2 compliance. I want you to contact Melissa's team. Find out what they can do to elevate your business, evolve your data quality. It's having a data scientist on your team. Get started today with 1,000 records cleaned for free at melissa.com/twit. MELISSA, melissa.com/twit. Really, really great company. Very impressive team. Thank you, Melissa, for supporting This Week in Tech. So Elon Musk, here's a picture of Jacob standing in front of the Twitter headquarters for NBC News the day that Elon bought Twitter, November 2023, for $44 billion. He didn't want to. The Delaware courts made him. Actually, it's 2022, wasn't it? Gosh, I can't believe it's been 2.5 years. Well, now he has somehow managed to move Twitter $33 billion worth into XAI. He says XAI bought Twitter, but that's nonsense. I mean, what is it? Does anybody understand what happened?
Well, it's
silence.
Oh, man.
No, I mean,
dead silence.
Yeah, go ahead. You take a stab. I'll try.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, it struck me as basic financial shenanigans. He manages to offload, basically by himself, and that gets him off the hook for an awful lot of debt that was used to buy Twitter.
He gave those borrowers XAI stock, right? So now they're all, or I don't know exactly. I think some of it goes to, I don't know.
Yeah, well, I mean, you've got to remember.
Is there Twitter stock at all? But neither one is publicly held, right? They're all privately held. So, but they're investors. The investors get XAI stock. Is that what it is?
That's my understanding.
That's right.
Yeah.
That seems to be the case. And I think he's betting that somehow XAI will ride the same kind of valuations that OpenAI has, and that will create this incredible windfall for these investors who are otherwise taking this extraordinary bath on where they're at with Twitter. I don't know enough about, and maybe everybody else can help me with this. Like, isn't there something about the Twitter financing through Tesla shares is coming due or something? And that maybe
I think that there was for a while a concern that as Tesla stock falls, and it has been in free fall, that at some point the loans will be called. But I think that's over. I think the banks have reevaluated.
I think that's right.
And I think that's over. So I don't.
But I think the main thing here is this thing of this is Musk trying to keep his investors in the black and trying to
right.
As he says, it's just moving the shells around such that all these companies are ways of leveraging debt, essentially, and betting on a plan. And if he can make the case that XAI is going to somehow go the same way as OpenAI, then they're all fine with it, And I think at this point, for so many years, it was my job to come on the air every day and be like, why is Elon Musk doing this again?
What the hell's going on?
He's cost investors so much money and blah, 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 But now, as the second in command of the United States,
who's going to cross him?
Who's going to cross him, and what banker doesn't want to be associated with
I think Twitter's worth a lot more now because of that, right?
Yeah, so it just feels like the normal rules don't apply to this particular guy anymore, if they ever did. And so
there's an interesting phrase for the way these people manage their tax debt called buy, borrow, die. And this is from the budget lab at Yale University. Elon doesn't take money out of these investments. He borrows against them.
Yeah.
And this is really important because you neutralize your tax. If you took money out, you'd pay taxes on it. But borrowing is not a taxable event in the same way. And then the buy Twitter with borrowed money, not real money. If you need cash, you borrow against your Twitter, and that's kind of, he borrowed against Tesla stock. The die part is kind of interesting because you get to pass this on to your heirs. Elon admittedly has many heirs, but you get to pass it on without taxation because when the assets are inherited, their cost basis is stepped up to fair market value at the time of death. So it's basically a tax avoidance mechanism. And I have to think that what's happened here with XAI and Twitter solves a number of problems, but chiefly one of them is tax avoidance. I love Axios' story. Musk shuffles $80 billion in assets, reshapes government, just another week at the office. What did you do this week? Did you restructure an entire country, sit for a national TV interview, and casually reorganize about 80 billion of your own assets on the side? If you did, you're Elon Musk. Last night's deal to merge his AI business, XAI, with his social media company X is normally something that might consume all of a CEO's time, but Musk did it while running Doge, reshaping the federal government. Incidentally, Doge has now announced that they are going to rewrite the Social Security software written in COBOL. So the Social Security Administration estimated it would take 15 years to rewrite this ancient code base. Musk says, we're going to do it in 6 months. And Good news. We're going to do it with the help of AI.
Yeah.
This reminds me of this is the, that picture you put up of me standing in front of the Twitter headquarters back in 2022. That was that phase when he was like going in with pliers to just cut out servers and scoot.
He feels like it worked at Twitter. He could do it now with the government.
But it's okay if Twitter goes down and or you lose your account. Like no one's dying from
or
that,
Nazis take over
or whatever it is, right? But with Social Security, right? The thing that all of I was reading a quote from an in-house government tech person who was saying, if you can do it the way he's going to do it, but you're inevitably going to leave somebody out. They're not going to get paid. They're not going to get paid in time. They're going to get paid too much or too little. Something's going to break. And my parents are just entering the Social Security collection age, and it would be a disaster.
I am on Medicare and Social Security, and I know many people who are, because we're all in that same baby boomer demographic. It is a little chilling to think that they're going to take that millions of lines of COBOL. By the way, it's very clear the Doge team does not understand COBOL. That's where all that date stuff came from. COBOL doesn't have a native date format. So that's how people can be 185 years. They don't get to leave. It all started at the same, time. There's no date for. So they didn't even understand that. That's why they said, oh, we must be paying people who are 185 years old. No, that's how COBOL works. Nevertheless, they want to completely replace this language, this data code, in a matter of months. 60 million lines of COBOL code originally released in 1960.
Good Lord.
It's mainframe software.
Shouldn't we want... I don't think it makes sense to go through this recklessly and destroy the Social Security system. But how are we going to accept a government that's going to tell us that it's going to take 15 years to rewrite a computer program? Why would we accept to have our Social Security maintained in a antiquated code? I mean, from the very little visibility that I've had into government software, we should all be outraged at the fact that the government is working on stuff that's decades behind what everybody else is working on.
I'm going to disagree with you on this.
If you're just one last thing, if you're going to rewrite the code, of course you're going to want to use like an AI copilot. If every developer is going to be using AI copilots, then you're going to just say, I'm going to hand code it for like what reason? Okay, but I'm willing to hear the counter argument. But
that's exactly the counter argument you just gave it. If it's working, you don't need to rewrite it. Just because it's in COBOL doesn't mean it's bad.
But don't you think that eventually that's not going to be sustainable, Leo? Because like how long? Let's say we have a coding language that's completely antiquated. How long are we going to have engineers that are going to be able to maintain these systems? Like, don't we want to have systems that are effectively up with the times? So not only can we disperse funds, but we could also do analysis of these government programs, which at this point are opaque.
I would say one thing I would say is that, I agree with you that, having a system that old is less than desirable, but it does work. My worry about this is that they're going to do a half-assed job on it, and after 6 months go, right, there's going to be maybe a year or so where things don't work very well. And it was interesting this week, they had one of the Doge guys on giving a press conference, and he was just like, look, my mother takes Social Security. I'm sure she wouldn't mind if a check came a little late once in a while. And it's just
I don't trust them to rewrite. I'm not saying, I think they are pointing to a real problem. I don't trust them to solve it.
You should also point out the air traffic control system is equally old and antiquated. Ideally, you'd rewrite all of this stuff, but you would do it in parallel. You would do it with extensive testing. And yes, you would take your time to do it right, because an error in an air traffic control system, I guess an error in Social Security could really be a life or death situation.
You have my vote, Leo. I agree with that 100%.
And I don't disagree that we need to modernize.
Cautiously.
Yeah, and we could do it. I mean, Bill Clinton downsized government considerably. People forget this by letting people retire in an orderly fashion. The Social Security Administration was going to rewrite its code. COVID forced them to, rethink that. But it's been in the works. I don't think it's a good idea to rush this. I guess
this is
I agree. The
thing that bothers me about this is that I feel like we're in a country that only has these two categories of reformer, or I guess two categories of people with an attitude about reform. One is the position that people have been put into of somehow defending COBOL, right? That we want to defend the old way the bureaucracy worked. And then the other one is people who want to break it and improve on it. And those people tend to overlap with people who make money off of the the upgrading of technology. And we don't have that category in the middle. There's a fascinating case study of Estonia, which if you want to nerd out on government efficiency, that is an amazing test case. So when Estonia, which was a Soviet holding, passed over into being a Western democracy, you had this explosion of innovation and creativity and all of this stuff. Now, this is a country of less than 10 million people, so it's not, it's apples and oranges in some ways, but they have a system today. And I've talked to the president who was the guy who was president at the time, Thomas Ilves is the name, and he created a system in which, like today, you can pay your taxes in 4 minutes on your phone. You can, any interaction you're going to have with the government, you can do on your phone, no problem. But the reason that it worked so well is that you had these deeply patriotic people who'd been held back under Soviet rule for so long. They wanted to kind of do this right as a matter of principle almost. And to me, when I think, when I see people from Doge wanting to change the Social Security Administration, I think, okay, I can imagine a version of that in which I trust those instincts and I trust that process. But then I look at them taking apart the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau, which was arguably the most efficient government agency ever. Mm-hmm. That place, returned, billions in revenue on only hundreds of millions in costs. And yet they wiped that place out because clearly it was a threat to the people in power in Silicon Valley. To me, that's where I lose it. But I agree with you guys that there should be a way to be more efficient. But
these can all be true. These can all be true, that we can get more efficient. We can be outraged at the antiquated software that our government is using, because when we use better software, we can do more things as a government. But we could also be upset at the fact that Doge is not doing this in a sort of way that is logical.
Well, after the collapse of the ACA website, the Obamacare website, a number of Silicon Valley people got together, went to Washington, D.C., and the United States Digital Services was formed. Matt Cutts, who was the director until fairly recently, was a regular on this show, very smart guy, came from Google, left his job at Google in order to run this agency, brought in really smart people, and worked responsibly to update technology. But what happened, I think, is now with Doge, you've got basically the same philosophy as Facebook, move fast and break things. This Silicon Valley idea that, hey, we're smart, we're quick, we're fast, we're going to, some things may go through but we're going to make it work. And I just don't think that's the way to handle these mission critical systems. The Social Security database is a custom database called MADAM. The master, it's not SQL, which, by the way, Elon Musk said it was. It's the master data access method. It was written in COBOL and assembler for mainframe computers in the 80s. The Social Security Administration, again, had a modernization plan, which was put on the back burner in 2017. I think you should update it. But anybody who's written massive data code bases, look at Microsoft Windows. Let me give you an example, which has roughly 60 million lines of code, not in COBOL, in C++. It is non-trivial. Microsoft might say, the best thing we could do with this is to rewrite it from scratch. They're not. Every time they've tried that, by the way, they've abandoned that. I don't think if Microsoft can't do it, I don't know if these 25 guys in Doge can do it.
I'm not sure I'm willing to trust my social security to someone calling themselves Big Balls, to be honest.
That's who it is, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
and I don't think Big Balls can read COBOL code and understand what it does.
No, this is it. I mean, this was one of the benefits for COBOL programmers was Y2K, because that did the retirement earnings for an awful lot of people who write COBOL. I think
the nice thing about COBOL, by the way, it's good for business logic. You can read it and you can see what it's doing, and it isn't as abstruse or weird as C++, for instance.
Yeah.
And I just because you didn't grow up writing COBOL doesn't mean you can't look at that code base and make some sense of it. Anyway.
Yes, it's going to be a weird one.
It'd be wonderful if they could magically create a whole new system. But anybody who's ever worked at an enterprise and tried to replace an existing code base with a more modern code base knows how challenging and risk prone that is, and how things break.
I mean, if you do break Social Security, that's a massive political liability, and there will be consequences to it. So
a lot of old people, we vote.
Yeah,
we vote.
The last ones who do.
Well, I mean, particularly with the other changes that they're announcing there, where they're shifting to a more, you can't verify your identity on the phone anymore, is the plan. So you either have to go down to a field office, which are being shut at a rate of knots, or you have to go online. Now, a lot of Americans either don't feel comfortable online, they've got really lousy internet connections. It's one of those things that seems penny smart, pound foolish, to use a British expression. It's just you're really saving very, very little with a potential cost for an awful lot of people.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I got a little bit head up. I apologize. I'll calm down. All right, another quick break, and then we will talk about your DNA for sale. Congratulations. No, you don't get to participate in the sale. Sorry.
Just put it in a COBOL system. No one will get it.
Nobody will be able to read it. Yeah. So COBOL's dates begin in 1875.
That's when it was originated.
Yeah. No.
I'm kidding.
They didn't, I mean, that's true. In Unix, it's 20, like we're going to reach this 32-bit limit in 2038. Y2K was the same problem because they were only using 2 digits for the year.
Yeah.
So these things happen. But I mean, that's
I love the optimism that they say, all right, we're just going to code it and
we'll fix it.
Worked with Y2K. It's
now, Darren Oki, who is a very accomplished programmer in our club, says, I disagree. I've done lots of migration projects over the years. It's quite feasible, especially with AI. Darren is a big AI partner coding guy. But it would be about understanding how to break off little bits of it, put in comprehensive regression tests, then port to that bit of it. And that's the problem is, especially if it was written in COBOL, I doubt it's really very modular. I think that's the problem. It's a big hairball of a program. I don't know if you can break little bits of it off.
I love how the Discord is now discussing vibe coding, Social Security. I mean, just put a prompt into Claude about a new Social Security.
That's what scares me when they say we're going to use
Elon Musk
AI.
Taking 6 months to do it. I could do it in an afternoon. Just let me have at it with Anthropic's latest coding tools.
Well, bear in mind also, this is an Elon Musk deadline we're talking about. If we'd actually taken his deadline seriously, we'd been on Mars about 5 years ago. So, it's one of those things. I don't understand quite why they'd set themselves up with this must be done by 6 months, because that just seems to encourage people to make mistakes in a rush to get it done. But yeah, by all means, recode it, but test it.
Yeah, don't put it in production. I mean, that's the problem, is they're going to be putting it in production as quickly as they possibly can.
We don't know that. I mean, they haven't yet.
Maybe not.
And I don't want to, not that I'm coming to their defense, but we haven't seen them mess this up yet. So I think.
Yeah, but by the time they do, it's too late.
It's too late.
Well, we've seen them mess up quite a lot of other things.
I'm saying
the track record is not great so far.
Correct. But if they mess this up, the political cost, like I said before, is heavy to pay.
Yeah.
So let's just keep that in mind before we say they're definitely going to roll out a broken social security system.
You're absolutely right. And I also agree with you. There is a great case to be made to modernize government, to shrink government. There's a great case to be made. I think that's why there is what support there is for what's going on with Doge, is because, these things did need to be done. I don't think anybody denies that.
I spent a very short amount of time in government, and I can tell you that the software that government runs on is awful. It's miserable. It makes government employees less efficient.
Yeah.
And there should be a prioritization for the government to be able to do this. And the reason why there's bad technology in the government is because the procurement process with the government sort of favors old school software companies that will not build the best in breed technology for the government. We definitely need to fix that. And there's this statement, if you work in government long enough, you're going to hear, it's called good enough for government work, where people are like, it's just the government. I'm going to get, 80, 90% of the way there, and we'll just kind of wash our hands of it. And we should be disgusted by that phrase, and that attitude exists within government and with the contractors and the procurement vendors that are getting these contracts to run, to build these systems. It's just, it really does not, we should demand more than we're getting there.
Right. It is astonishing. I went down to NASA JPL for the Curiosity landing on Mars. And, this was 2012. We all went down. We had briefings, very high technology project, that sort of thing. And then when they showed the presentation, it was on a system running Windows XP. And you're like, my goodness, how out of date is this? So, you're right. Government software tends to be pretty poor.
But solving it is difficult.
I just want it to be someone who doesn't make money off the product, has no.
Yeah. There you go. There
you
go. Yeah. And please don't use grok to do it, okay? I'm just begging you.
Grok now is under the same umbrella as Twitter, so it's
that's
really
then what could possibly go wrong? All right, little break. Come back. We do have many more stories to go through and only a little bit of time left. So let's hustle this along with a great team. I could spend all day talking to you, but Jake says 3 hours? Really? So we won't make Jake do that. More to come in just a bit. You're watching This Week in Tech, brought to you this week by Oracle. There is a growing expense eating into your company's profits. It's your cloud computing bill. Now, you may have gotten a deal to start it, but now the spend is sky high, increasing every year. What if you could cut your cloud bill in half and improve performance at the same time? Well, if you act by May 31st, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure can help you do just that. OCI. It's the next generation cloud designed for every workload, where you can run any application, including any AI projects, faster and more securely for less. In fact, Oracle has a special promotion where you can cut your cloud bill in half when you switch to OCI. The savings are real. On average, OCI costs 50% less for compute, 70% less for storage, and 80% less for networking. Join Modal, Skydance, Zoom, and today's innovative AI tech companies who upgraded to OCI and saved. This offer only for new U.S. customers with a minimum financial commitment. See if you qualify for half off at oracle.com/twit. That's oracle.com/twit. Thank you, Oracle, for supporting the show we're doing. And thank you, dear listeners, for supporting us by going to that website, oracle.com/twit, so they know you saw it here. Let's see. 23andMe. I'm trying to decide. I sent my spit to Susan Wojcicki's 23andMe many, many moons ago. They have it still. In fact, as they've upgraded their hardware, they use a chip to analyze it. I have spent more money to upgrade it. Now 23andMe unaccountably is filing for bankruptcy. The CEO, Anne Wojcicki, the founder, has stepped down. And a number of organizations, including, I think, the Commerce Department, are saying, you might want to delete your data. If it's sold, whoever buys it will get all that data. It's interesting because Wojcicki, according to Engadget, is planning to bid for it, to buy it. Maybe that's why she stepped down, so she could buy it. The board of directors special committee has previously rejected a proposal from her. Should I be deleting my data?
Yes.
Hell yes.
Alex, you want to make it unanimous?
Roll the dice, Leo, and give it to McDonald's.
Who cares?
Let's have a good time with it. Yeah.
Who cares? Once valued at $6 billion last month, down to $50 million. They laid off over 200 employees late last year. Probably the nail in the coffin was in 2023 when hackers accessed the information of almost 7 million customers. 23andMe didn't notice that until 5 months after the breach, and didn't announce it until 6 months after the breach, a month after they discovered it. They did settle a class action lawsuit for $30 million, which, if you're making 50 and you settle a lawsuit for 30, you get some idea of why they're in financial trouble. The California Attorney General, I misspoke. It wasn't the Commerce Department. The California Attorney General has suggested that you delete your data.
Yeah, I mean, it boggles the mind on one level, because I understood. You can understand the attraction of it. It was a very cute idea, but I speak to the EFF probably once a week, and they would have a chat with them once, over a pint or something, and they're like, we're trying to protect everyone's genetic data, and they're actually paying a company to read it and store it. It's just it's incredibly frustrating from a privacy perspective. But yes, it's incredibly.
Well, what could they do? What could they do? What is the worst case scenario? Let's say I don't delete my data and that somebody buys it. Who would buy it? I don't know.
Okay, I'll throw one out here. So I'm back in, God, I don't even remember, 2018 maybe. I wrote a piece for the New York Times Magazine about a field that is still moving, but for some reason has not caught a lot of attention, called Genoeconomics. And this is people who it's economists and geneticists coming together, and they use, this is going to sound like I'm making this up, or like it's a science, like it's one of Ian's novels, but this is people using technology, genetic technology, to make a prediction about social outcomes in their life. I was standing in a conference room at Stanford when this guy was first trying to explain to me what this was. And I was like, wait a minute, you're doing what? And he's like, we're using genes to predict things like whether you are more or less likely to graduate from a 4-year university. And I was like, what are you talking about? How would you, first of all, why would you do that? And second of all, how do you do that? And he said, well, I'll do the second one first. How we do it is using a huge pool of people, and they draw the data mostly from 23andMe, along with the UK Biobank in your home country, Ian, to profile a sort of pool of people, and they can create these predictive scores that account for things like your socioeconomic background, your, all these various sort of factors in your life, and then put that together with your genetic data, create a predictive score that then can be ported over to other people. And already, you already have the opportunity, if you're at if you're a couple trying to get pregnant and having trouble, and you want to go to a fertility clinic, which is a totally unregulated industry, the fertility clinic is allowed to offer things like, you can choose whether you choose to go forward through IVF with the kid who's got the lighter skin or the darker skin, or blue eyes or green eyes, or whatever it is. And soon, if this technology keeps going, you'll be able to do things like which kid's got a greater chance of going to college or not. So then when I asked this guy, hey, what is the other, why would you do this? He's like, well, it's because we want to be able to help people make up for difficulties in someone's genetics such that we can, give them the better education.
This all sounds good to me, though. What's wrong with this, Jake?
Well, this was the same idea behind the IQ test back in the day, which went on to be used to exclude people and do eugenics, right? I mean, it's a thing. This is the pattern, is that once the market gets a hold of this kind of stuff, it's not about compensating for people's
I'm not worried, though. I have my Medicare and my Social Security check.
It's the insurance thing.
I don't ever have to worry about that. I'm going to be fine.
Yeah, I'm afraid not. No, I mean, this kind of thing is a goldmine for the health insurance industry, particularly when you tie it to information from data brokers. So, for example, does this you've got the genetic material, you know how much they earn, you know what they're spending it on, you know what life choices they're making.
Isn't it more valuable to know if I go to Dunkin' every month or every week or every day?
Oh, yeah, but you get both of them.
The more the better.
The more information, the better.
I think insurance companies don't worry about that, because what they do, in effect, before they insure you, and I'm sure you've all been through this, is they ask you a lot of questions like, how often do you drink? How often do you smoke? Do you go to Dunkin' every day? And if you lie on that, then they can deny you. They hope you lie on it, because then they can deny you your benefits when you need insurance, when you need to pay off. I think that they don't. I don't know. Is there evidence that they're using this information to deny for instance, insurance to people?
No, but there's no law against it. There's no rules against that kind of thing. And once that becomes a powerful enough tool to be as predictive as asking you about smoking, there's no reason that the market wouldn't do it. I mean, the other one, right? So there's the insurance one. The other one is that 23andMe has complied with all kinds of subpoena requests for all kinds of data to try and lock down, to compare the relatives of criminals to try and isolate stuff. And that
people have been caught. In fact, didn't they finally figure out how Zodiac was from the genetic? Was it Zodiac or was another?
I think Zodiac's still in question on that.
We don't know Zodiac, but
I mean, there have been many cases where people have done the 23andMe and found out that, guess what? One of their parents isn't their parent. I mean, that information is findable and doable. But I think
there's some benefit to that. We have a family member who I think was Ancestry, not 23andMe, but who was a long lost son of somebody somebody's grandparent who was reunited with his family. Said, and they actually, my ex-wife just had a big dinner, Thanksgiving with all of the reunited families, thanks to the genetic information at Ancestry.com. I've myself have found second and third cousins on 23.
I think it works really well for people who have never experienced. I mean, people like me and you, Leo, who maybe have not experienced discrimination or wouldn't experience any kind of discrimination on the basis of our genetic backgrounds, but you have this hacker group used that 23andMe leaked data way back when to try to assemble a list of people with Ashkenazi Jewish heritage.
Right.
Who knows what creepy ass stuff they were going to do with that?
That's an interesting question. Yeah.
Like the ways in which it gets used against.
I was on that list, by the way.
Were you? Yeah. I mean, this is the thing, like, so I guess I'm the only one in this group who wouldn't suffer from this, but the discriminatory possibilities are incredible. And you can't change your DNA the way you can change your password. When they tell you, your DNA's your password's been leaked, change all your passwords. Great.
It's absolutely. If I were 25, I would do it right now. But I'm an old man. What are they going to do to me? Right. For me, there's probably less hazard. It's probably the case. If you're younger, you should probably.
I mean, honestly, the less data out there, the better in these kind of circumstances. And I take the view very much that you minimize your data footprint just on basic privacy grounds. But I am
an experiment in the opposite direction. You understand that, right?
Yeah.
I'm wearing an AI pin that's recording everything that happens on the show. Everything I say, everybody I talk to, then gives me notes at the end of the day. It sends it off, the recordings off to some unknown AI in the cloud. I've given up, I guess. But I also have, you're right. Like you, Jake, I'm at low risk. So, I'm a cis white male. So it's probably no risk to me. If you are at risk, delete your 23andMe data. Yeah. Actually, Steve Gibson made a shortcut, grc.sc/bye-bye. BYE. You have to log into 23andMe and then click the link and it'll take you right to the page where you can download your data and delete it. It's not the only genetic company I've given my spit to, however, so my spit is everywhere.
The Discord is saying that we're going to get a Leo clone. How do you feel about that?
I would love that idea. Make 100 of
6-hour shows. I'm not doing
that. Okay, in fact, now's the time for Leo number 2 to take over.
I'm tired. I got to go.
Good time.
my Ghibli AI in for the second half here.
Your eyes are getting wider and wider as we speak.
All right. AI Leo in the Discord just said he's ready to take over the show. So.
Oh, crap. There is an AI Leo in the show. He is Anthony Nielsen made him some time ago. I feel like we could update him, maybe. I don't know. Asked, are you ready to take over? Oh, absolutely. I'm like a cat waiting to pounce on a laser pointer, just itching for action. What's on your mind? Tech questions, gadget gossip? Maybe you just want to hear my latest dad jokes. Either way, I'm ready to roll, says AI Leo. In my voice, I might add.
Welcome to hour 4.
All right. Mm-hmm. By the way, speaking of AI, the CEO of Replit, which is a great online coding tool I've used myself, says, hey, don't study coding now. AI is about to take over. One should not waste time on studying coding now. Oh my, look at all the pop-ups on this.
I would rewrite this headline. It would be Coding AI CEO says AI coding will be big.
Good point.
Very much.
Although for a long time, he started Code Academy and Replit. For a long time, he really supported people in learning how to code. Of course, Replit now has, what they call vibe coding built in. You write a prompt and it writes the code for you.
I certainly wouldn't suggest it as a career for an up-and-coming, young student to get into coding. Maybe learn how to use AI to get into coding. That would be something to study. But just coding itself, there's always going to be jobs because AI code has to be checked and improved. But longer term, there's going to be a lot of coders out of work, I suspect.
I had a conversation with a guy the other day I was at a party, and this guy was lamenting that his daughter wants to go into art rather than being a lawyer or an engineer, is what he was saying he wanted her to do. And I was like, I don't know, man. Are you seeing what's going on with lawyers and engineers right now? Like, lawyers are getting fired left and right.
By the way, law schools are reporting a 20% increase in the number of people applying to become lawyers.
No, wow. I bet that's this little bump of people my age who have fallen out of all the other white collar jobs. I don't know, man.
The article I read said that people want to make a difference in the world, that people are becoming lawyers because they want to fight. So
that's interesting.
I prefer to think that's the case. I don't
in this case, like with this coder question, I had this. So in talking to this guy, I was like, maybe your daughter, if she can really become a disciplined, prolific artist, maybe there is some sort of new, I'm curious what everybody thinks about this. Like what is, like I've been kicking around this book idea of like the sort of the rebellion against AI in terms of resistance. Yeah. What would that look like? Like if you are literate in the tools, but you're trying to push against this trend of every single thing is going to look like a AI generated thing. What's the I don't know, what is the career path of, my 13-year-old should be thinking about? If it's not coding, right? It's not being a lawyer, I don't think. But I'm not sure it's being a, sculptor either.
I think it's possible that there could be. Sorry,
I was just going to say, stay away from Studio Ghibli. You're
not going to work at Studio Ghibli. That's exactly right. That's right.
That's a really interesting question. What should a 13-year-old think about their future? My kids are now 30 and 32. And they look at the people coming out of college right now and go, "Oh, I feel bad for them." These are the poor kids who went to high school during COVID. They're getting out of college now, and they're looking at a job market that is in complete disarray.
And they're being
and by the way, housing costs are so high that they can't afford to rent without 3 roommates and 2 jobs.
Well, the housing thing
is always entertainment is to think that they should be famous all the time.
That's the answer, right? Oh, we should.
Maybe they should.
By the way, my son is an influencer. My son is doing quite well. He's a TikTok chef who has transferred his knowledge and viewer base to Instagram, and he has a cookbook out that was a bestseller, and now he's opening a restaurant in New York. So it's too late. You can't do that anymore.
Well, why not though? I mean, isn't the answer here in some ways to do entrepreneurship? Like we talked earlier today about the $1 billion one-person startup. Well, why does it have to be just that? With the tools that are available today, thinking about even the coding examples that we used, where you could code up programs for yourself, you can create art for yourself. I mean, all these things that it would take an entrepreneur, or would make being an entrepreneur or one-person entrepreneur cost prohibitive, those barriers are coming down.
Well, it used to be knowing coding was the way to do that, right? You were going to be the next Bill Gates. So now what is it? What skill should you learn?
I was tossing this idea around with a friend a couple of weeks ago, and I think there might be a market for human produced art, documents, that sort of thing, where that an AI hasn't been involved. And I don't know, maybe there'll be a premium for that kind of thing, but it'll take a while to come, I think.
That's like the fanciest possible thing is a thing made by human hands.
So be a potter is what you're saying.
Right.
Hospitality also seems like a area that's going to consistently be like making people feel welcome, making people feel appreciated. Seems like that's going to be an area.
You just said the AIs are going to take over customer service.
Customer service is not all of hospitality. Like there will still be, you might have somebody that will help you deal with your problem. That will be a robot, but the person that's going to welcome you into a restaurant, a hotel, someone that's going to put those experiences together. Your son, for instance, has the exact, basically it's the business of the future, right? It's content, but also hospitality.
He's putting a studio in the front window of the restaurant.
There you go.
So people can see him making the sandwiches, making the videos, and then they go and they buy the sandwiches. Yeah.
And then what about care? The care business. People joke.
We're all going to need nurses soon.
I think nursing is going to be a profession that already is in high demand. There's already huge shortages. I think that is going to be an area where nursing, doctors. What about there's going to be room for like basically nurse practitioners. I think people who have, a little bit more training to really be able to have somebody come in the office and be like, listen, I just read about what I'm dealing with ChatGPT. Do you think this is the right medicine? And they prescribe it to you. So there are areas where we're going to be able to see your human flourishing and the need for humans. It's not all going to go to the robots.
One thing you should not do, create a website of history, a history website. You talked to the CEO of the World History Encyclopedia. As AI takes his readers, Alex writes, a leading history publisher wonders what's next. His traffic to his site has dropped 25%.
That's right. So this is Jan van der Kraven. He's the CEO and publisher of World History Encyclopedia. It is the number 2 history site in the world, I think, outside of archive.gov. Right. So I guess the government's beating him there. That must be some good technology.
Don't worry there. The government's shutting down all the museums. So I think that's going to help. Right.
Yeah. But basically what he has this site that covers world history. He has 9 full-time staffers. They write about 500 articles a year. And what he is faced with right now is that ChatGPT and AI overviews have ingested his content. Yeah. And they're presenting it summarized alongside other history websites to users. And so he saw initially, he goes, oh, yeah, that's our stuff. And with Google, at least there's links. Then a big update came in November 2024. And then all of a sudden, basically overnight, traffic dropped 25%. And this
you understand, though, that he made his success based on the demolishing of Encyclopedia Britannica and the World Book, right?
Listen, I think there is a mutual relationship with him and Google too, right? Like 80% of his traffic still comes from Google, and he built his site based off of Google. But here's what's different. I was like, all right, so like what's different now? He says right now it's just Google that benefits. And the same is true, let's be honest, for ChatGPT, for Anthropic, for many of the AI chatbots that gobble up the content.
I use Perplexity, and I very often, even for things like recipes, don't end up at the website because Perplexity gives me the content.
That's right.
Yeah, and look, at least he has historians and volunteers writing the articles. And what happens? Like there's a value exchange there, right? And I think that deal that publishers have always had with the platforms that they produce, and the platforms can basically highlight the stuff in exchange for being featured at some point. That is changing, and now the platforms are just taking it.
But we're all journalists here. We've seen this happen before when it came to the collapse of advertising revenues going to publishers rather than to Google and Facebook. We've been down this route before. We will go down it again in other industries. I can't help feeling.
This is what happens with technology, right? Disintermediation and
so the question is what comes next, and the answer that Jan had was pretty interesting. He thinks there's a possibility in the future that instead of them publishing to the websites, they'll just be paid by the platforms. They already have a revenue share deal with Perplexity to just write for them.
So good. So I can use Perplexity. It's okay.
Yes, I think Perplexity is the best of them all. But basically,
what a relief. I was feeling guilty.
This quote really got me. He said, we'll no longer be publishing to readers. We'll be feeding the machine. Wow. And the readers read what the machine gives them. And he says, who controls the machine? What biases does the machine have? How does this affect the world? He's quite concerned about it. And I don't think that's off base.
No, I mean, this is the problem with AI generated comment is that you've got to check it. I mean, when things like ChatGPT first came out, that sort of thing, you do what everyone does. You ego surf and you push in your details and see what it has on you. And according to ChatGPT, I am an award-winning journalist with the New York Times and the Guardian, and it's like never written for either of those. I'm afraid, So sometimes, well, this is it. But I mean, it's one of the greatest PR tricks the AI industry has ever done is dubbing these things hallucinations rather than mistakes, because they are mistakes. But if you give it a cuddly name.
But humans make mistakes too, right? I mean, you have to check your sources and get another opinion.
But the relationship we have with computers is not like that. We expect a computer to give us accurate information.
Benito, our producer, the voice of God talking. Yeah, that's what the point of this.
Yeah, sorry. I was going to say, this is the thesis of my book, is that we as humans are terrible at telling the difference between
we can't judge
a system we can trust and one that we can't. Our brains are shortcut machines that don't like to do work. That's how we survived. That's how evolution trained us, is to be as quick, as decisive as possible, using as little energy as possible. And AI is the perfect kryptonite for that, because we are going to have no ability to take a second to see whether Ian writes for the Register or the New York Times. Like, we don't do that. And yet the business model is going to be built on the idea that you can trust these systems.
Yeah.
And to me, there was this, I interviewed a guy once who's a federal judge who was talking about how you can make systems more efficient, and the market is always going to try and do that. But there are certain frictions you want to save, you want to keep. And in law, they call it, it's weak perfection is the legal term for this. And it is basically like, he was saying that you could, for instance, make it much easier to enter a guilty plea or a not guilty plea. And that doing so, you could swipe right or swipe left and be done. Currently, the legal system makes you come in person to, say it in front of a judge, and the judge, has to go through this very complicated process, because you only get one shot at this. Once you enter a guilty or not guilty plea, it's going to change your life forever, and you never get to take it back. And he was like, we have to, we could make it better, but we instinctively, we do it on purpose, make it hard on purpose, so that you have to engage your thinking about it. And for me, there's something about the way that the flow of information and what we're supposed to assume is objective information is being made more and more efficient. And that is creating, I think, real trouble.
Efficiency is our enemy, is what you're saying.
Not enemy, but it can't be our only consideration. It can't be the only thing we measure this stuff.
Does this relate to Daniel Kahneman's thinking fast and slow?
That's what it is. So my book basically is pitched as Thinking Fast and Slow meets Her, is sort of the book, is trying to say, like, I spend like 3 chapters summarizing Kahneman and all of his disciples' work to say, based on what we found over the last 40 years, here's how the brain works. And then, oh my God, here's all of these companies about to, drive your autopilot for you.
A friend of mine's a teacher, and it drives her nuts when kids bring in stuff and essays that are wrong. It's just like, well, that's incorrect. He goes, well, no, the AI told me it was correct. And it's like, now she's got to teach them to check their sources. So, I'm looking forward to that book, actually. It sounds like a very interesting read.
Kathy O'Neill, who's going to be on our show in a few weeks, says it's a fascinating and unsettling survey of the known spectrum of human biases. I am ordering the book right now.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you.
That sounds really interesting. Should I order it from your site? Is that a best?
It's Amazon.
Can I?
I don't know. I can't get away from the machine, so
Amazon, huh? Oh, yeah. Order your copy here. I always like to. That probably gets you a little kickback. I would hope.
I'm smart enough to do that, but yeah, maybe so. Feel free, please do.
Oh, and there's an audiobook version. Good.
Yeah, it's my voice. Yeah.
You have a great voice. I will. That's the one I'll be ordering. I think that's a really interesting point. I hadn't really thought about. Kahneman's whole thesis is we have 2 kinds of processes in our brains: the fast one that is quick and intuitive, and the slower one that is a little bit more methodical And that's interesting. So
that's right. And the fast thinking brain is our ancientmost brain that's been around. We have it in common with primates. Like it's been around since long before we were even standing on our hind legs. And the new slow thinking brain, the creative, rational one that we think is who we are, the Atticus Finch, the thoughtful, creative one. That's that's our self-image as humans.
Right, but we're not.
In my experience, when you talk to people at the top of Silicon Valley companies, they think that's who humans are. We are going to be thoughtful and reasonable. Blah, blah, blah. Turns out that system barely gets involved in your day-to-day life, and the rest of the time, it is just the ancient system making decisions. And the problem with AI and these ways it's being deployed in the market is that it plays on the fast thinking brain. It plays on the really ancient system that identifies berries and outsiders and all that stuff.
And that's what you mean by the loop, is that we are in this kind of vicious circle that is tightening around us.
We're going to feed in more and more of these kinds of ancient choices, our bad instincts, into these systems, which are going to deploy them as products and deploy them as a smaller list of choices. And I think a lot of people talk about AI as this kind of flywheel that's going to create this endless opportunity and endless creativity, and it's going to be this sort of open wheeling universe of fun. And my thesis is, if it could go that way, I hope it does, but I think it's, given what I've reported in the book, if it goes the wrong way, it's going to be a tightening spiral. And at the bottom of it, we're all going to be like wearing beige and drinking Soylent and having no sense of humor.
That's not so bad.
Talk to girls.
I just don't want the high water pants they wear in Her. That's the only thing I don't want to do that. I just ordered it on Audible. I think I had no idea. It sounds fascinating. All right, we're going to take a little break. A couple of final stories. We're almost done. Alex Kantrowitz, Jacob Ward, Ian Thompson. So nice to have all three of you this week in tech. It was a good week to have you on, actually, as it turns out. This Week in Tech brought to you this week by Shopify. We were just talking about my son, salthank.com. When you think about businesses whose sales are rocketing, like Allbirds, wearing them right now. Untuck It, wearing them right now. Salthank.com, you think about an innovative product, a progressive brand, and button-down marketing. What is often overlooked, the unseen secret that's actually the businesses behind the business making selling and for shoppers buying simple. For millions of businesses, including those three, that business is Shopify. Love that sound. Salt Hank got started. He was just a guy, just a kid. And he said, Dad, I've got this TikTok following. I want to sell salt. He created a site with Shopify. Thank you. And it's grown from there. He's now selling pickles. And I have to say, a little disclaimer, I am an investor in the pickle business. And I'm thrilled to see him using Shopify. Nobody does sales better than Shopify. It is the home of the #1 checkout on the planet. The not so secret, Shop Pay boosts conversions up to 50%. Now that's huge. One of the problems, you go to buy something, let's say a case of fine flaky salt or his fabulous truffle salt, and then you get distracted, you change your mind, you walk away, and the shop cart goes abandoned, right? Not with Shopify. Way fewer carts go abandoned, way more sales are being made. Can you hear that sale? That's how I know. That's a sale right there. So if you're into growing your business, your commerce platform better be ready to sell whatever and wherever your customers are, scrolling or strolling on the web, in your store, in their feed, and everywhere in between. And I'm sure when the restaurant opens in New York City on Bleecker Street, right next to John's Pizza, Salt Hank will be using Shopify. Businesses that sell more sell on Shopify. Upgrade your business. Get the same checkout that Hank uses, that Allbirds uses. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/TWIT. That's all lowercase twit. Shopify.com/twit to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/twit. Oh, we just sold another jar of pickles. I don't think Shopify knew that I would incorporate my son's website into this ad. Thank you, Shopify. It really does empower the little guy and little gal to create a business. It's kind of cool. Thank you, Shopify. Here's a business. Madison Square Garden. Did you hear what the Dolans are up to? Madison Square Gardens has face recognition. As you know, they've banned people that Dolan doesn't like. The latest, a fan wore a T-shirt that says "Ban Dolan." He was a concert on Monday night, Radio City Music Hall, owned by MSG, owned by the Dolans. Frank Miller was there with his parents for their wedding anniversary. He didn't see the show because the minute he scanned his ticket, he was pulled aside by security, told by staff, "You are barred from MSG properties for life." For life, for an incident at the Garden, Madison Square Garden in 2021. Miller said, "Wait a minute, I haven't been to the Garden in 20 years. They hand me a piece of paper letting me," this is from The Verge, "letting me know that I've been added to a ban list. There's a trespass notice if I ever show up on any MSG property ever again." I mean, that's not just Radio City Music Hall. It's the Sphere in Las Vegas, the Beacon Theater in Boston, the Chicago Theater. He was baffled at first, The Verge writes. Then it dawned on him, this was probably about a T-shirt he designed years ago. MSG Entertainment won't say how they figured out it was him or whatever, but this goes back to 2017 when Charles Oakley was removed from his seat near Knicks owner and Madison Square CEO James Dolan. It became a legal battle. For Miller, Oakley was an integral part of the 90s Knicks. And with his background in graphics design, he made a shirt in the style of the old team logo that read "Ban Dolan." Oh, there's your mistake. This is the world we're entering in now. There's no anonymity because face recognition. And the Dolans are quick to use this. They've used it before.
Well, they banned I think it was a lawyer went to one of their properties.
She worked at a law firm that had a lawsuit with Dolan. Yeah. She wasn't involved in the lawsuit, but didn't matter. And of course, they have the right. It's their venue. They can ban people, but this is problematic.
It's the wave of the future, to be honest. Sorry,
go ahead.
Jake.
Sorry. Go ahead. Sorry. I'm just excited.
No, I'm just thinking it comes back to what you were saying, Jake, about discrimination and the increasing ways that technology can be used in that way. And this is a prime example. Facial recognition technology does something or finds something which this guy obviously thought everyone had forgotten about, and boom, insta-ban. And this is the way it's going to go in the future.
I was going to say that the thing that is crazy to me is how often, the China is sort of held up as this, and it is, it's an authoritarian regime, and it's constantly held up by the heads of big tech companies as sort of the ultimate evil, and we have to compete with them, we don't want to become like China, China, meanwhile, I think it was last week, but the week before, just passed these new rules basically limiting the amount of facial recognition.
This is wild. They are ahead of us.
Yeah, they're pulling back because they think it's not right. This is from, I think this is from your colleague, right, Simon Sherwood at the Register.
Yeah.
That it's the fact that they have these rules that seem to be trying to pull back on it out of interest for individual privacy, and that we, meanwhile, are living in the Dolan's world is such a weird thing.
You've got to say, when even China is saying, "Hang on a bit, let's just slow this down a bit." Even China,
No. And of course, some of the issue is false positives, right? I have mixed feelings about this. Taylor Swift uses facial recognition at her concerts to keep harassers and stalkers out. And I think that seems like a good use, as long as it doesn't mistakenly identify
harassment
somebody.
And stalking, right? But there's no law in a First Amendment regime against having a T-shirt that criticizes the owner.
No kidding.
Well, he's within his rights. It's just that this is such a thin-skinned move to do something like this. And as a Knicks fan and someone who likes to go to the Sphere, I will say no more.
And that was Joey Kantorowicz, our Brooklyn columnist.
Also, is the Sphere that good? Because I've seen footage and it does look like a bit of a money pit.
I'm dying to go. Are you kidding?
Theo, you better use my Muppets face for the thumbnail here.
It's too late. I'm dead. I've given Dolan way too much trouble in the past. I'll never get into anything like that. Wouldn't that be wild, though? I almost want to be stopped because then I could, make something out of it. There'd be a story there.
Well, I mean, there's already anti-paparazzi clothing, scarves you can wear, which can, muck around with cameras. Yeah. I'm sure something will come along like that.
Yeah. All right, we got more coming up in just a bit. You're watching This Week in Tech with a great panel: Alex Kantrowitz, Jacob Ward, Ian Thompson. So glad you're here this week. Moving on. Gemini, we've been talking about AI and ChatGPT and Perplexity. We're not talking a lot about Google's AI, Gemini 2.5 Pro, which is currently at the top of the leaderboard. And now Google's done something interesting because people aren't talking about it as much as its competition. They're making that available for free to its users. I have a paid Gemini Pro account, but anybody can use Gemini 2.5 Pro. It says experimental.
Yeah.
There are rate limits on it. It's funny. I'm now going to have to think about using it because I never do. They have a perception problem.
It, right? Is it reveals the degree to which these companies are subsidizing what is incredibly expensive processing.
Exactly.
The compute it takes to put together something is amazing. I've just been recently talking to a bunch of technologists about the potential of building AI tools for journalists. And I've been playing around with one of the fundamentals of what would be necessary to do that. And one of them is confidentiality. You got to be able to feed stuff in and not let it go anywhere else. So you can't use a subsidized model like this. The reason Google would subsidize the use of this and make it free to non-paying users is because then they get that data back to do more training. That's one of the benefits of doing so. And if it turns out if you're not going to do that, if you're not going to let them have the data, it's expensive. A token is about like 2/3 of a word. So I was looking at it and I'm like, wow, if you put together like the complete financial documents of a company for a year into that and get 2 pages of summary out of it, that's like $5 if you're really paying the market rate.
But how useful is that? I mean, that's incredibly useful.
Super useful. But how many times can your average Substacker afford to do that before they start wiping themselves out? And so to see them handing over $5 per at least to people is really amazing to me. That just suggests just what a bath they're willing to take on this stuff.
Yeah. Well, and it calls us back to the beginning of the show where Sam Altman said, please stop using our AI generation, image generation, because it's costing us. The servers are burning up. All right. Well, I think I've used up all the stories in my pile. So there's only one thing to do is call it a day. I am so glad to have all three of you on here. Alex, keep up the great work. Alex Kantrowitz. You all should subscribe to the Big Technology Substack and podcast. It's awesome. What great guests and some mystery guests this week. There'll be big news.
Was that for a tease? Yeah, it's going to be fun. It'll be a fun episode. I promise that.
Can we do 20 questions? Is it a man or a woman?
I mean, I will add, in service of taking extreme caution here and not exposing and losing the interview. I will not answer any questions, but I will promise you will enjoy it. So tune in on Friday.
Okay, here's a secret that I will reveal. Next week, Jason Calacanis is going to be on the show.
And Alex as well.
So if you have any opinion about Jason, good or bad, I want you to tune into the show next week. I will tell you he's going to be on, which means he's definitely not going to be on the Big Technology Podcast.
It's not Jason. That's the clue I'll give you.
I can quote you.
Jason, if you're listening, come on sometime. We'll talk.
He's fun. He's an interesting. You know what? as we get closer to our 20th anniversary in 2 weeks, I think more and more about the people who made this show, succeed over the years. And Jason's was on a lot, kind of in the middle period. Great character. He used to do the best Audible commercials for us. So.
And congrats, Leo, by the way, on 20 years. That's not
20
easy
years.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive.
That really is.
Congrats to you, Leo.
Wow. We are asking people, send in your videos. You can either put them on social and at Twit, or send them to me, leo@leoville.com, and we are going to get as many of those videos. How you watch Twit, when you discovered Twit, your Twit story, so we can run those. Because I think really the story of Twit is absolutely the story of its community, an amazing group. We love all of you, and we thank all of you for this long time support. Jacob, are you now part of the family? Jacob Ward, we kept it under 3 hours, barely.
I'm amazed. You guys, I don't know how you, I was snacking the whole time. Alex took a sip of La Croix. What the hell? I don't understand.
This is done.
It's incredible. I don't know how
you have to build up your podcast
I'll do it as long as I'll survive.
chops. Sure. You have to work your way up to it. It's actually, I think
sprinter. I'm
going to look actually, but I think the first Twit 20 years ago was, I think a half an hour.
Oh wow! Okay, that's mission creep has come in.
That's my guess. But let me see. I think I can go there if I go twit.tv/twit1. The first episode was 34 minutes and 44 seconds.
Wow.
That's a pretty reasonable amount of time, Leo. I'm just saying.
That's how long your shows are.
Yeah, exactly.
But 20 years from now, you'll be 5 hours, 6 hours. You'll be all day. Trust me.
You're reaching that super commuter audience with the 3.5 hour commute.
That was, I think the secret was, as people's commutes got longer in the past 20 years, it's really been beneficial to us.
You've been with the times.
Joe Rogan and me. That's it. Jacob Ward, get his book, The Loop. I did. I just ordered it. Follow him at theripcurrent.com. That's where his newsletter and podcast, our brand new podcast. Great guests already. Thrilled for you, Jake. It's great.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it, Leo.
Welcome to the independent creator verse. It's been good to me. It's been good to Alex. I'm sure it'll be great for you too.
Well, I appreciate it.
Thank you, Jacob. We'll have you back soon, I hope. I say I hope because I hope you will come back.
I'm in.
Okay. I promise you we will invite you. I just hope you'll say yes. Ian Thompson, how many? You've been here for 20 years almost. It's been a long,
14
strange trip. 15.
Yeah, 15 years now. It's
I know, because the picture of you is very old.
Well, to be fair, I was younger and prettier in those days. But yeah,
I would stick with that picture. I think it's a good picture of you.
I came over here on a 1-year contract, and then just kind of kept on extending.
Were you? Did you start with a register in the UK? I feel like you did.
No. I was with the original plan was I was with a site called VNUnet, which is now been expunged from the internet. So yeah, I was going to come over, hire an American lead, and then go back and run the site. But then there was a reorganization, so I stayed with them for 3 years and then moved to the register.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, so you've been at the register just as long as you have been on our show, yes?
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah, in fact, that's when I started doing it, I think, maybe. It was back when Megan Maroney was doing
Look how cute he was 15 years ago. Just a lad. Just a lad. He's taught us so much about the English language. And by English language, I mean the language of England.
Yes. Yeah. Well, some phrases have got through. Grips my muffin is always a popular one. But yeah.
So many shows that you've been on titled with some of those anglicisms.
In one case, quite rude. I
didn't know. How was I supposed to know?
Yes, but...
two countries separated by one language. Right?
Indeed. Churchill was right.
Yeah. Wow. There are 9 pages of appearances.
Good Lord.
Let me go back to the earliest appearance. Tech News Tonight, number 34 in 2014.
Wow.
You appeared a few times on Tech News Tonight before we brought you up to the big leagues. And
it's only a half-hour show, so this isn't 3 hours.
I really appreciate it. Thank you for your patience. Great fun. Yeah, you were on This Week in Tech 500.
Wow.
525 episodes ago.
Good grief.
Wow. Thank you, Ian.
When you're having fun.
Thank you, Alex, Ian, and Jake. We really appreciate your time and your brilliant thoughts. Thanks to all of you who listen as well. It's what a long, strange trip it has been. 20 years and 2 weeks. Do send us your videos. I'd love to hear how you found us and how you watch. Of course, if you're a member of Club Twit, you can also just post it into our Club Twit Discord. That's a great place to hang. $7 a month gets you ad-free versions of all of our shows, gets you access to the Club Twit Discord, lots of benefits, special events, special shows. I think, come to think of it, I have a show coming up this week. Yeah, Photo Time with Chris Marquardt is Thursday, April 3rd. So he's our favorite photographer. We get him on every month. Brilliant, by the way, is the theme of the photo assignment. So if you haven't yet submitted a brilliant photo to Flickr, to our Tech Guy group on Flickr, do that. We'll also be doing Micah's Crafting Corner on the 16th. He's doing Lego plants. And on the 18th, Friday, Coffee Time is back. Mark Prince will bring Liz Happy Beans together. We will talk about coffee, and then the AI Users group at the end of the month, and that's just the month of April. $7 a month, you get so much benefit, and I hope you will join us because it makes a huge difference to us in terms of our bottom line, and it will help me towards my goal of buying the Starship Enterprise because I've always wanted to be a starship captain. That's pretty good. I like it. Thanks for being here, everybody. We'll see you next week. Jason Calacanis and Alex Wilhelm. It's kind of a This Week in Startups takeover. The following week, our 20th anniversary. But as I have been saying for 19 years and 50 weeks, thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time. Another Twit is in the can. Bye-bye.
This is amazing.
Doing the Twit.